Welcome back to another episode of the pod. We've got Matt Kelly on today. Matthew, what do you prefer?
I go with Matt now.
Matt, okay.
It seems to be my podcast name, Matt Kelly, the Midnight Pod.
Matt Kelly runs the Midnight Cod, a company called Space Goods, which is psychedelic but not yet psychedelic. Maybe we'll get
Mushroom
into that.
brand of the future. Yeah.
Mushroom brand of the future. Also, he's an undercover guru, so we're going to get into
Yeah, I guess so. On the side.
Guru on the side. But yeah, no, mate. Pleasure to have you here, mate.
Good to be here. First proper pod in Bali. I really should have booked this studio for my own because I've been doing a few here. And I put one up last night and I watched it back and thought, what the fuck is that? Filmed it on iPhone. The lighting was all wrong. The mics weren't right because I haven't got my usual setup. But I didn't know they had this stuff in Bali. Even though I've been to Bali like 5 times, I've never been since 2019 when I wasn't in the podcast world.
Bali's the kind of place where it's kind of like London. Like you can go to London and have a shit experience. You can go to London and have the best experience. I feel like Bali's kind of like that.
Yeah, I think it comes down to who you know and like what they know about the place. Because if you came by yourself here, I mean, I've been here before, but I guess until I met you today, I didn't really know about the podcast places.
Yeah.
And now within 10 minutes, I'm like, fuck, I need to book this and redo the episode I just did. Because and you've got pink lights, which is very much my vibe, which you rarely get.
I would like to say that we planned that, but we did not. They just happened to be. We can change the colours though. So
yeah, that's cool.
Anyway, this retention is probably terrible. So I'll get back.
Yeah.
I'll ask you a question as we were supposed to do in a podcast. I'd love a little bit of childhood backstory. Got maybe a little violin I can get out. Tell me a bit about your childhood. What it was like growing up. How did Matt Kelly?
Yeah. Do you know anything about my story or not?
I know.
Why did you reach out to me? I'm interested.
I know a little bit about you.
Were you follow me before or
what? So I found out about you honestly when you launched your brand. When you launched Space Goods, like a mate of mine. Actually, do you know a guy called Barney Charles? He had a pod. He probably
rings a bell.
He would have reached out to you ages ago. I think you may have had something set up. I don't know if you did, but he's just a mate of mine. And then that was how I heard about you. And then saw you through the brand. So I probably know less, maybe a bit less than some of yours. But I did watch 2 of your YouTube videos today to get to do some good due diligence.
Well, yeah, I would say I'm the most transparent guy in the entrepreneurial space because I don't think of myself as having a personal brand at all. But I guess because it's just there's no motive. It's just I've started putting shit out like a year and a bit ago. But I guess very long story short, from the north of England, grew up in York, had a twin brother that I was constantly compared to, even though we're the exact opposites in every way. Spent years as a rower in my youth, wanted to go to the Olympics, but then kind of fell out of love with that. Discovered entrepreneurship when I was maybe like 18, broadly speaking. Always used to just design logos, fictitious brands I would maybe one day launch. Launched a clothing brand when I was like 18, didn't know what the fuck I was doing. Logo on a white t-shirt, everyone took the piss. Was working in Waitrose, summer job, whatever, standard, hated every second of it. Put all my money from that summer job into like stock and couldn't sell anything. Went to uni to study, ironically, business at uni. Did 6 weeks before I dropped out. Then went and did a placement in central London in M&A, which is mergers and acquisitions, wearing a suit, meeting, I guess, wealthy people for the first time in my life, realising that you didn't have to be a footballer or a celebrity to make money. Because that was, looking back, probably what I thought. You either get a normal job or you're a celebrity. There's no in between. Yeah. And then did that for like 6 months, went back to uni, didn't really know what the fuck I was doing. And I was like, well, that's better than doing nothing, which it definitely is. Did advertising, ironically. I did graphic design for a year, then switched to advertising, and then dropped out again. Because at this point, I'd been like playing around with loads of different e-com stuff, was in like Facebook groups. This feels like ages ago now because it is like 2015, 16. Discovered Facebook ads in like 2016, started drop shipping jeans from China. That was like the first time I was like, oh, you can actually make money doing this. And that started doing pretty well. I'm cutting a very long story very short. That became like a proper clothing brand. Like we designed our own shit. I got an office in Newcastle, which is where I was at uni. My mate Ollie got involved, who's now kind of a semi co-host on the pod and an investor in my newest business. So it's funny how it comes full circle. Nice. That business did pretty well. I stopped going to uni, didn't tell my parents, eventually got kicked out because I just didn't submit anything, but I dropped out at that point. So that was like March 2017. That business then like fell apart because we just fell out and we just like, fuck it, let's just stop running it. I then got back into like the drop shipping space because I guess funnily enough, I'd started with like building a brand as opposed to drop shipping, like attempting to with my clothing brand. But then I just didn't really have much money. I was like, fuck, want to make some money online. Like, don't know what I'm doing. I've already dropped out of uni. My mate's not going to leave. I need to go do my own thing. Started traveling around Europe by myself. And then, very long story short, again, and I've vlogged all this, by the way, on my other old YouTube channel, which is linked in my pod. There's like 120 vlogs over like a 2-year period, which is quite fun.
Oh, you've been in the game for a while then?
Yeah, I just never had any views on those. It was just purely for me.
I feel you, bro.
And then what happened? Yeah, then I went to some e-commerce event in Singapore in like September 2017, which I probably credit as being like the turning point where I met people doing similar shit to me, because I knew literally no entrepreneurs from home, from uni, anything. I felt like an alien. Fast forward like the next 2 years, basically spent like 2 years being a full-time nomad, lived in Bali for a while, Australia, America, Europe, basically everywhere. Did a bunch of drop shipping stuff, like had like a leggings website. This was back when Facebook ads were very easy to just scale a store. It
was OP back in the day.
So I was probably doing like $500,000 a month at one point. So like I was honestly balling, given I was like 22 at the time. But you know, didn't know anything about like investing and stuff. So I probably just wasted 90% of it, to be honest, on like traveling, bought a few stupid cars, even though I wasn't really living in England, like came back in between. And it was a bit of a weird setup in hindsight. Then I decided I wanted to build something more long-term, because like dropshipping was getting more difficult. I wasn't passionate about selling random shit from China, even though it's a great way to start. And it's what a lot of people I would recommend they do that don't have any money or experience. Moved to London in April 2019, which is nearly 4 years ago, with two other guys, Fred, who's now one of my best mates and runs a brand called Sanucci, which you're probably familiar with, it's massive, and another guy called Seb, who was just like hustle house spec. And I wanted to have a base. I was still traveling, but like I said to you before, wanted to have somewhere to compound like networks and so on, because I was a bit sick of just coming back to my parents' house in between traveling and so on, which is what I was doing.
Quick one, fellas. You probably heard a few months ago I dropped an ecom course, a very fucking guru of me, but it's not that. I promise you, 0 to 1, how to start a brand from scratch with no budget, some budget, a bit of budget. Take your idea from a bedroom to reality to potentially 7-8 figures in sales, like I've done a few times, based on my 7 years of experience in the trenches and my current experience building my current brand, Space Goods. It's no bullshit, no frills. We've had like 75 people go through so far. Not a single person has asked for a refund. Plenty of people have actually built some seriously impressive shit. Covers every aspect of the business. Not just the front end stuff like most gurus on YouTube and Twitter are talking about, not just product, marketing, all that shit, but the real shit, the logistics, the back end, the supply chain, the customer service, the finances as well. This covers the whole spectrum, every part, 12 hours of video. If you're interested in scaling a brand 0 to 1, actually turning our idea finally into a reality, then click the link below, go check out Learn Real Commerce course and let me know what you think. I'll be glad to have you in there. Let's fucking go.
Yeah, then launched a jewelry business called Midnight City, which grew super quick, grew that to like 3 million run rate in like 18 months. Profitable, wasn't really passionate about it. It was pretty early in like the UK men's jewelry scene. It was kind of us and then Crafted London, who are now way bigger and way more successful. If Danny's watching this, well done. He's probably not watching this, to be fair. But yeah, grew that in like 2019. Then launched another brand called Neon Beach, which ruined my fucking life at the very start of 2020. Bad idea running 2 brands, by the way, but I just thought, I literally had this like idea. I wanted a neon sign, an LED neon sign to be specific, for my room that was my jewelry brand logo. Couldn't find anywhere that was selling them. And being the just 0 to 1 ideas guy, within like 2 days, I launched this brand, came up with the name, you know, source of supplier, like custom B2B signs, ran an Instagram ad, and then that business grew to like £1 million in like the first 3 months. It was ridiculous. Perfect timing with COVID. So fast forward like 2020, running 2 brands, e-com's booming at an all-time high. However, that's not great for a complicated B2B custom sign business. We were making it in China, ironically, because China was super slow because of COVID. So like massive demand, but supply chains were fucked. So it was like 2 sides of the same thing. I then brought all the production from China to the UK, and then long story short, a factory went bankrupt on me. Like 3 million quid's worth of orders disappeared. I was doing like 1.5 million quid a month in revenue, driving a Ferrari, living in a penthouse flat. Things were going pretty perfectly until this business went quickly very wrong. And then long story short, I had to get bailed out by investors at the very start of 2021 who bought that brand and the majority of my jewelry brand as well, because of the way I'd structured it, which is fucking stupid in hindsight. Because if I'd kept them separate, that would have been fine, because the jewelry business was like successful, no problems, clean supply chain. But running 2 businesses under the same company, which I've painfully learned now, it's not the way to structure things. Yeah, long story short, that business went, Neon Beach went tits up, as everyone knows, like episode 1 of my pod. That was my whole angle of telling that story. So go and watch that for like the full in-depth. But it was a complete horror show. Like I went from having like 7 figures in the bank to the business being insolvent in like 4 months, which I didn't even know what that meant at the time. And like dealing with like lawyers, looking at like business bankruptcy and shit. And ultimately got bailed out by an investor, which I guess was fairly lucky maybe in hindsight, or maybe not lucky, but glad that happened, because it was the the best of a very shit situation. I then worked with them for 6 months, sold the rest of my equity in that, of which wasn't that valuable at the end, to be honest, because the brand damage had been done, etc., etc. Then went back to the drawing board to start my next thing, because I wasn't like completely fucking homeless or anything. I was still like had a decent amount of money, a lot of experience, great connections, most importantly. And then thought, well, first I started the pod. This was like September 21. So just when I decided to leave working with them and like go back to the drawing board, they offered me like a big slice of equity, a big salary. I guess 99% of people in that position probably would have taken that. I was like, I'd rather jump off a cliff than work for someone else, because I just have never done anything else. And then always had ideas for new brands, etc., etc. And probably for the first time ever, I actually thought about what I was going to do next rather than just dived into it in like 2 days, which is probably a great trait to have, but also a fairly risky one at times, because it wasn't that calculated necessarily in the past. And that's when I started working on Space Goods, I guess. And within about 2 months, that went from like broad idea to, all right, fuck it, I'm actually going to work on this, raise a bit of money from angel investors, which was largely to do with not wanting to do it myself again, because I just learned I would rather in the future have potentially half of something big that actually managed to get big, because I wasn't the only one trying to do it and relying on myself, as opposed to doing it myself again, which I'd done in the past. So raised a bit of money. That was pretty easy to do, because like I said, I'd got a lot of experience, like track record. Fortunately, built a very good network, which is probably my greatest asset. All my mates are very successful entrepreneurs who make me feel very unsuccessful, which is probably the best way to be, a small fish in a bigger pond, rather than the other way around. And then about 5 months from when I started working on that, and like 5 months later, end of April, well, not this year, last year, 2022, launched the brand. Long story short, it's been like 8.5 months now, growing it to over $1 million in revenue, on track to probably do like 5-6 million in the next year based on current run rate. And now it's a decent business again. And it's quite cool to know that the previous ones weren't flukes, because I probably lost my confidence a bit when shit went tits up, to be honest. But yeah, I guess now it's my third 7-figure brand, but definitely one I'm most passionate about, and I think could be massive. So yeah, it feels like the stars have aligned somewhat in hindsight. Like maybe all that shit was meant to happen so I could change the world with mushrooms. So I guess for like the last, like I said, 8 months, I now work on the pod and Space Goods. That's what I do now. So yeah, that's like in a very tight nutshell, but that's still probably like 15 minutes.
That's, mate, I just learned a lot about you in 10 minutes. I'm sure a lot of the people listening to will as well. Wow, man. I literally had didn't know half of that story, man.
It's a very intense story.
Yeah, that's
probably
a lot.
Way worse than a lot of people can imagine.
That's a lot in a even just imagining like that going from that to insolvency in a period of 4 months. Like, what was that?
It was ludicrous.
What was that like, waking up or even going to bed during that period?
I want to fucking kill myself for like 6 months, honestly. Like, that's not even exaggerating. And I say that sounds flippant because I confidently say that, because that's just the reality. And when you're not in that place, it sounds kind of flippant. But at the time, that's how I felt. Yeah. Because I felt like I went from, certainly from an outside perspective, probably looking like I had the perfect life, because I'd had 4 very good years of every year. And there's always problems, but I'd never experienced a problem on that scale. And when I say, like, I don't know of any e-com story ever that's more horrific than that. Like, people literally say to me, it's like legendary. It's like folklore at this point. Like, literally I had the Daily Mail at my door trying to write articles on me, calling me a fraudster. That's how bad this got. And I had a deal with ITV, Love Island. This was like peak Q4. So we were on TV, primetime advertising. I had like investment funds wanting to put money in, all this shit. So I went from thinking this is the biggest thing ever, which I still think it could be actually massive, that market, and it's a bit of a shame what happened. But yeah, it went from like, fuck, everything's going amazingly, 2 brands, completely self-made. And obviously I worked very hard to build all that. But yeah, it was a very tough lesson, I guess, that things can change very quick. And in hindsight, that business wasn't built on the best foundations, because it's a very complicated supply chain. You know, you're making stuff to order, so ultimately it's drop shipping, but it is by definition, because they're custom B2B things, massive AOV, which doesn't help either, because people spend 500 quid on a sign and it doesn't show up. It's not like some 20 quid ring. And especially when it's, you know, largely outside my control. But yeah, it was a very messy period, very, very messy. And it was probably the social media hate combined with the fact the business was going under that I'd never dealt with, because I wasn't in the public eye at all before. I mean, still not now massively, but yeah, like people, you know, ultimately people can find out who's behind something, and then they get the wrong idea of something. There's like Facebook groups dedicated to my demise. It was fucking rough. Probably for like maybe 3 to 6 months, peak like shitstorm. And then ultimately, yeah, because the business wasn't a scam, I got bailed out by investors who saw potential in it, and obviously liked what I'd built to that point. I guess they were investing in me, and since then, the founder of that is invested in my new thing and so on, and whatever silver linings. But yeah, that was pretty intense.
How do you look at yourself now as this version who's been through that whole period versus before? Like, what are the differences in Matt pre and post that?
Definitely way wiser.
Yeah,
like way wiser, because I don't know anyone that's been through that much shit at my age. Certainly, like other than health problems or whatever, I don't think you can get much worse as like a 25-year-old at the time, because that was like peak shit. And like I said, people do go through worse, like terminal illness, whatever. But in terms of business, that was very fucking rough, especially because I had no one around me. I was the sole director, didn't have anyone of any experience helping me. Like, it was literally a case of I was Googling, like, what the fuck do I do? Like, that's how raw it was. But yeah, now I just feel like nothing can really stress me. Like, almost like David Goggins, like, can't hurt me in a way, because I don't think it gets much worse than that. And then, like, around that time, like, I ended up breaking up my ex-girlfriend and all this shit, and it was just a rough fucking period. But yeah, I don't really recognize myself looking back, because I feel like I went from super confident, like, winner in my mind, to like a year of feeling like a fucking piece of shit, and then gradually having to chip away to build back up. But then maybe the newer version is a better version than originally, but I definitely have a lot of scars from that period that I probably need a fucking therapist to unwrap, because yeah, I reckon I still have like PTSD to an extent, honestly.
Yeah, no, it's like
So
it's like Tyson says, everyone's got a plan until they get punched in the face, right? I think it's, yeah, I don't know many people who've experienced it on that scale, but I think humility is like one of the most important business skills, or like being able to like bypass your ego. Because I think when you make decisions, if there's any amount of ego involved in it, a lot of the time that's probably not the best decision. So I think having that, and then also good people around you who can probably like check you and give you good advice, must just be like the perfect combo now.
Yeah, I mean, I was very fortunate back then. I was still like living with my mates, running similar scale businesses. Granted, I hadn't gone through that shit, but at least I could speak to them about it. And then, like, even in the past year, I've like met a lot of people that through sharing that story on the pod, like I've met 2 guys I've referenced before, like now investors in the brand, like mentors to me. And yeah, I think definitely sharing that story has been very beneficial. Like the reason I made the first pod was because I just needed to fucking speak about it, because in a way I wanted to like clear my name, to just clear up any fucking rumors or whatever about what happened. But then it resonated with so many people. I was really scared to put that out, because it's 90 minutes of me just basically talking shit about myself. But then, you know, that's so rare these days that I think a lot of people just found it very refreshing. And because maybe I'd had this perception online, like posting pictures of fancy cars and shit, which I'd earned and deserved, definitely, because it was all self-made, didn't have any money from parents or whatever, and I'd worked my face off for like 5 years. But I think, you know, natural tendency is people just think, oh, that guy's got lucky, or he has it perfect. So when I came out and said actually everything went fucking wrong, yeah, I think people relate to that. I guess, even if they've never been through it, they're just, you know, the human condition is and life is not all fucking rainbows and sunshine.
It's free therapy, really.
Yeah, exactly. That's why I started doing it, really, talking about it.
Yeah.
So,
and then so you went through all that, came out the other side, probably a bit wiser, probably a bit stronger, can deal with a lot more stuff. What I find interesting is how that, because I think most people are scared to like share this, like, skeletons in their closets, right? Most people don't even have that many skeletons in their closet by the time they're 25, let alone 65, right? But you did. And then now some of those people are your investors or like business partners, or may have bought stuff from you. Yeah. So like talk about that a little bit, because I think that is like the complete opposite of what anyone would have imagined would happen, like sharing that.
Yeah, I think like at the end of the day, like the truth prevails. Like because the whole narrative with like the Daily Mail and shit was, there was an army of people online that thought I was a scam artist, and kind of I can see why. You know, there's a picture of me sat next to a Ferrari, 2 million quid of orders have disappeared, when it was the absolute opposite of the truth. And obviously that was proven in the fact that, you know, the business still exists, everyone got their money back, all that shit. I basically ended up having to give up the business to refund people. That was the cost of that. So all the money these investors put in, paid back everyone. That was the right thing to do. I could have just shut my laptop and fucked off to Bali. probably wouldn't.
I was going to ask.
Wouldn't have my integrity intact. But
yeah, because you could have just gone bankrupt, probably, right? Or
Yeah.
like filed for insolvency, paid like someone $5,000 to be like, yeah, company's closed.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
what were those like? What were the? Was that basically the other option? Were there any other?
Well, I
potential
wanted
options?
to save the brand basically, and,
Yeah.
and that's what I did. So I had multiple people, funds I could have worked with, but yeah, that was a process in itself, which I learned a lot, definitely. What was the question? I'm fucking going on a tangent.
It was
here.
basically like you chose to like essentially like save it, but you could have.
Yeah.
Could've
So,
gone a
the
different route,
reason
right?
the reason I think the story came out well and people related to it was because, like I said, firstly it was true. You know, people might have been talking shit online or whatever, but the facts are the facts. Like that's what happened. Everything got sorted out. And yeah, just by sharing my story, I think, you know, you can lose money or whatever. You can, but if you do the right thing, ultimately keep your integrity intact, you have good intentions, you're probably not going to lose much else. You know, there's stories of actual scam artists and so on, which kind of piss me off, that maybe have got away with a lot more and made a lot of money out of things, whereas I lost a lot of money and people still call me a scam artist. But those people, you know, their reputation isn't intact. And I can think of a few now that I won't name. You know, a lot are in like the Forex space and so on. There's been a lot of scandals that have come out of that, especially in crypto as well in the past year or two. Logan Paul being one recently, which I don't know if that's true or not, but you get the idea. Whereas for me, it was like, what I said was true. I wasn't a fucking fraudster. And yeah, I think that's refreshing for people to hear about. So I think it brought me a lot of trust from people that watched my shit. And obviously, I think someone that's been through a lot of shit is probably more investable and more backable than someone who hasn't. Because anyone can fucking, well, not anyone, but it's a lot easier to run a business when it's going well. Like, take away 90% of that and see how well most people survive. Probably not that well.
I think it's about who you attract as well, right? Because a big thing that I always say is like, basically who you are is who you attract, right? It's like I have a lot of different ways of saying that, but the type, like, I'd love to know like who are the types of investors you've attracted, right? Because they're probably going to resonate with you and going through that, as opposed to if things were going well and you'd probably get so many offers for people just wanting to jump on the train, but they might be a totally different type of investor. Like, what are they?
Yeah,
like
like,
these guys like?
everyone that invested in the business is just angels. So like either my mates or people that I came to become friends with through the pod. A few of the main ones are like guys in their 30s that have built and sold businesses. And I think people like that in that position want to back the next generation of entrepreneurs. Obviously, you have to have a good business and be credible. But I think having that story, like, there's so much just in the world, just fluff and people saying how perfect everything is on like LinkedIn, fucking virtue signaling bullshit. Twitter's even worse, and Instagram. So I think, you know, if you just, and also like the actual vehicle of a podcast. So like two investors, for example, Jimmy and Alex, who might be watching this. I literally met them for the first time, or Jimmy was the second time, but I met Alex for the first time on the pod. We spent 2 hours together speaking about his story, my story, drinking wine. Like you build you can get a relationship with someone pretty quickly by doing that. I think just talking about bad shit just makes people relate to you a bit more because it's so unfiltered.
Particularly if you're English.
Yeah, exactly.
No, you actually, your videos on like documenting the journey inspired.
Yeah, so I do that on the side now as well. That's like a separate series.
That inspired me though, because I was like doing my content. Like, I only got into like online, like being online, like last year now.
Yeah.
And then I was literally like seeing what guys like you were doing, just fully just fucking sharing it unfiltered. And I was literally like,
yeah, I literally nothing I've not said probably.
Yeah, I think that's
amazing. Which may come back to bite me, but I just think in my mind it's like, because I put a video out recently about my fucking struggles of mental health throughout my whole life. Probably the most honest video I've ever made. It was like 50 minutes long, and naturally those things get the most views because people are like, oh fuck. But so I have like the pod and then have the document the journey. So the idea of the document the journey is a weekly video, whatever the fuck's going on in the business, hopefully from now until £100 million business in 5 years time. So if anything, like if no one watches that, I don't care. It's for me. Yeah. But then the only way to do it is to be completely honest. So sometimes people probably say like I look like I'm really moody sometimes doing that, but that's just like I'm not putting on a front at all. Like probably those videos even more than a pod is where I'm super honest. It's just me. And like a bit of me has thought in the past.
Spacegoods, spacegoods.com, Rainbow Dust version 1, my newest entrepreneurial ecom brand venture. I spent 6 months in the trenches building this shit from scratch. We launched 6 weeks ago. What's it all about? The next generation wellness brand with a long-term vision to essentially consumerize the pending psychedelic consumer goods market, which might sound absolutely ridiculous. We're not quite there yet. The market's massively illegal. But what is this? Rainbow Dust version 1 is an all-in-one mushroom and adaptogenic blend designed to unlock your supernatural self. Essentially, experience a sharper focus, sustained energy, zen-like calm throughout the day. It's an all-in-one powder, tastes like fucking hot chocolate, tastes delicious, works great, looks great, feels amazing. Essentially, the broader concept here was to legally imitate a psychedelic microdose and, like I said, experience those symptoms. You can mix it with anything, brownies, bake brownies with it, mix it with your coffee, have it without coffee, replace your coffee, put it into a protein shake. It's super fucking versatile, it tastes great, it replaced the stack of supplements I was previously taking, but you need to try this shit. It would definitely change the way you work, get you into that deep workflow. I obviously think that myself. Plenty of 1,000+ first customers think the exact same shit. It's not just a pretty packaging, it actually works really fucking well. Keto, vegan, all that good shit. Trust me, you need to try it for yourself. Let's scale this shit to the moon. Spacegoods.com. Get on your Rainbow Dust subscription and see how you fucking feel. Let's do it for the boys. Spacegoods.com.
Like, oh, should I not say certain things? Because, like, two sides. Firstly, maybe a potential investor in the future might see it and think I'm unstable or whatever if I don't look like everything's perfect. But then they're going to find out anyway, so fuck it, I'll just say it. And then it wouldn't be real otherwise. But then the other part of me is like the flip side of putting stuff online. A bit of me has honestly thought in the past, oh, like, is some girl that I like going to fucking watch that and think he's not some alpha G? But then they're going to find out anyway.
Yeah.
Like, all these guys pretending. I think there's a real pandemic of like, I'm a G, like alpha men bullshit on like Twitter. And the whole, I don't know if you're on Twitter a lot, but it's kind of, I spend more time there than like Instagram and so on. And there's so many examples of people that they portray this whole like, oh, I'm fucking like this top G, like the whole Andrew Tate narrative.
Yeah.
But then the reality is they're probably crying to their fucking ex-girlfriend like the night before. They're just not posting that shit.
Yeah.
But then I'm just a pretty like deep philosophical character anyway. So not everyone's like that. But the long and short of it is, yeah, like I'd rather just be honest, because at the end of the day, if you're putting up a front, someone's going to find out who you really are anyway. Whether that's an investor, a friend, a girl. So if you're just yourself, you're either going to scare off certain people or you're going to attract the right sort of people. 100%. So you may as well just be yourself, because you don't have to keep up some narrative.
100%. Yeah, no, I agree. I completely agree. Like, even for I've had the same thoughts, and when I had a similar kind of story, but not on as big of a scale, where basically a couple of years ago, marketing agency was at the height, and then I was literally just fucking scared shitless, nervous that I'd lose it all. One day, lost half of it, and crashed and burned. I was like going through just mental torture for like months. That led me on more of like a spiritual journey, and that was where I like found just like peace basically amongst the storm, and just to be able to like manage my own state. That was like the only way. I was like, I got to a point where I was like, fuck it, I'm just gonna try this. I tried everything else, and then when I shared that, I started sharing it online, not for really any main intention, but just this is what helped. That was when like I attracted my like current girlfriend, who is like completely aligned to that. Whereas before, it's like the girls who I would be with were like, let's just say had less substance.
Yeah,
that was what I
just
portrayed.
like surface level shit.
Yeah, so it's like it works at all levels. 100, like, you know, I completely see it.
Yeah.
What kind of girl are you looking to bring into your life?
I'm not looking for one, but I'm just. I mean, I'm a very romantic character.
Yeah, no, that's because I'm a bit like that as well. So that's why I kind of asked. You know,
I mean, like I mentioned before, like a lot of people that watch the pod will know the story with this, but like I literally hired this girl. I'm not going to speak about her specifically, but like I hired this girl to be in a movie, because that's it being my brand movie where we launched. That's like another girl in the second one and shit. But I don't know. I over romanticize things to a problematic extent, to the point where like I know what I visually like, which is like tanned brunette, kind of like this whole aesthetic that I just imagine like we're driving in a convertible Ferrari together. Like my pinned tweet actually is about this. Like my whole creative aesthetic is all just about like being like the 1980s, driving a convertible Ferrari with like a brunette girl, and it's like the whole like movie scene from like the 80s and shit. It's that whole vibe. So I'm very into that. But then so yeah, that's the sort of girl I visually like. But I end up just over romanticizing things, and when the reality is no one is perfect, and oftentimes if you, at least for me, I've like given someone too much credit because they look a certain way when actually there's no substance beyond that.
Yeah.
And like granted, it might work in a movie, but life isn't a movie all the time, even though I wish it was. So I'm not searching for anyone, but I'm very all or nothing. Either don't give a shit about anything or a girl or whatever, or I'm very invested. And it's like, yeah, a romantic state of whatever. There's no in between.
Yeah.
And it's the same way I think about like things I'm into, like working on a brand or whatever. And like even with like running, if I'm going to start running, I want to do the fastest marathon. I'm not just going to run twice a week.
Where do you think that mindset comes from? Like the on-off switch?
Don't know. Like I definitely get like the kind of physical side of it from when I spent years rowing. That was just like brutal training and so on. I've always hated the idea of being normal or average. Not that there's anything wrong with that whatsoever, but I've always been like, I would hate to be average, but whatever that is, financially, physically, you know, where you live, the way your life looks statistically. I don't know. I've always felt like I have something to prove.
So I've had that big fear as well. Like my big fear when I was in uni and I saw my mates applying for jobs in finance. I did economics. That was the route.
Grad schemes.
Yeah.
PwC.
And I saw these guys who were way smarter than me getting rejected from these like Goldman Sachs, etc. And I was like, well, fuck, what am I gonna do? Because these guys are like cleverer than me, like intellectually wise. So I was like, fuck that. I'm like, that was when I started my like agency, which I still have now, right? So that I was driven by that fear, but I feel like at a certain point, at least for me, like I didn't want to be driven by fear anymore, because that fear, ultimately, which has probably come from fear of not being enough or not feeling worthy, right? Those deeper fears that you talk to a psychologist or a therapist about. Like, do you think that is a sustainable source? Because you've got guys like Alex Hormozi who will say famously, you know, one of the biggest drivers of successful entrepreneurs is not feeling like they're good enough. There's like impulse control and these other things. But then it's like, well, do you want to live a life that way forever, being driven by that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm definitely driven by like hate rather than love. Like Andy Frisella speaks about it. I've always just had a chip on my shoulder.
Yeah.
Like, I don't have anything to prove to the same extent like I did when I was younger. It's probably why I bought like fancy cars and shit to tell people at school, like, yeah, I actually did it or whatever. But you know, those people aren't even watching anymore, or maybe they are, but I'm sure they've got on with their lives.
Do you care what they think though?
Not anymore. No, I probably always feel like I have some artificial enemy, like someone to prove, whether that's a girl that's pissed me off in the past, which probably is right now, or like, I don't know, someone that said I couldn't do something or whatever. But then, yeah, I'd say ultimately I'm just driven by freedom. That's what it's always been from day one. Like I'm not even, I think a lot of entrepreneurs, and I've been accused by my parents of chasing money. And I find that so ironic, because the guy that does the grad scheme is chasing money way more than me. I sell pink fucking mushroom powder on the internet. That's not chasing money. That's chasing like creative freedom. And you need to make money to do that. So yeah, like let's just have an honest conversation. It is important, but yeah, I think a lot of entrepreneurs get misunderstood by the general public. You know, whether that's the 99%, whatever you want to call it flippantly, but yeah, I'm just driven by freedom. The idea that I can at least do what I want, where I want, and I do want to make a lot of money as well, because that ultimately means the business is bigger and I'm having a bigger impact, which I want to do.
When did you feel the most free in your life?
Probably in like 2018, when I first started doing the Nomad thing and everything was new. That's probably the happiest I've ever felt, because that was like when life was, I don't know, I was a bit younger and everything was super exciting because I'd never done it before. I remember coming to Bali for the first time in like March 2018, and I was amazed. I'd never been to Asia before, and I'd been to Thailand before, but just even going to Thailand for the first time, I was like, wow. Even though I went on an economy flight, whereas now I just fly business, it's on points or whatever. But like it never feels the same as the first time. So that's probably when I felt most free.
And so like so now you're in Bali, we're filming this in Bali. How's it feel different compared to that first time you're in Bali?
Maybe like less exciting, but also better, because I know a lot more people, have a lot more context on things. Yeah, I don't know. Like you can only get that like newness from something once. Do you know what I mean? You eventually run out of newness.
I actually disagree.
Do you think?
I think it's a perspective.
Maybe.
I think it's hard to do. I'm not saying it's easy. I'm not saying most people do that. But I think it's literally a choice whether you want to experience that, like, whoa, that awe, you know?
Yeah.
I think we naturally seek novelty as humans. Like we want the new thing, right? That's why like running a Facebook ad and you got a new angle and it's like slightly different. Like everyone loves it because we always want the new thing. But I think the reality is like nothing's really new except ChatGPT. That's pretty new.
Yeah, that's old now as well.
That's true. Does that affect your business? Will that affect your...
What, ChatGPT?
Yeah, I feel like
I've played around with it. I'm not one of these like wizards that just has already automated their entire fucking business with a new software, but it's pretty cool.
You tried it to like write landing pages or...
I haven't actually tried that yet. I need to do more of that shit. I need to be more innovative, waste less time doing shit manually.
I don't know. It sounds like that's one of your biggest strengths is your like creative innovation.
I'm definitely a creative first. Like I actually don't really like running a business. I'll be honest. I've just worked out, how to do shit like logistics, supply chain, dealing with suppliers, whatever it is, because hiring people.
So it sounds like that's,
I don't want to be a CEO and
that's bullshit. The gap then. Off air you were saying like you can do the 0 to 1 like that, but then it's the 1 to 100.
Yeah,
that's
I really
the gap,
need to hire
right?
someone
like an operator CEO.
Because I'm very good at ideas and coming up with something from nothing, like the alchemy of entrepreneurship. But I definitely have got less inspired. The second stuff's got like, it's just like a business now. It's kind of same shit every day.
Yeah,
stuff takes months. Do you know what I mean? So I'm very aware of that now. So that's why I've got advice around me and so on. I haven't yet got someone to like run the business properly. That's actually what I want to do in the next few months. Hire someone to do that and like align them with incentives and so on.
Yeah.
But
there's probably someone literally listening to this or your podcast, right? That's exactly like the guy who's doing mine. He's literally shadowing me on everything. He'll be running the whole thing in a few months, and it's like he literally found me through online. It was actually a fucking video.
Yeah, well, I've had people literally message me on Twitter about this. Guys that have been CEOs of big brands and so on. I think 1 or 2 of them just wanted too much money, but we can talk about that. So yeah, I definitely I need that inbox. Person.
Slide into his inbox.
Because I just like making movies and coming up with products and shit. I think I'm very, very, very good at that. Like probably better than most people that specifically get hired for that, because it's all I've ever done. And I've done it from like a commercial angle. I actually understand the wider workings of how to build a product and a brand and so on. Still loads to learn, but I don't enjoy the admin of running a business a lot of the time, if I'm honest.
Yeah, and it just becomes more. I know
it's a necessary evil, of course.
You just start doing more and more admin, the more successful you get, though. That's the problem.
Like, you start doing the fun shit, and then eventually, I'm not doing the fun shit anymore. I'm just looking at like finance and shit, and supply chain, all this bullshit, which is very important, but it doesn't get me out of bed.
Yeah. So, how do you see it when it's like at 100 million? What does that look like?
Well, ultimately, my vision, like, firstly for this, is I want to build a D2C psilocybin brand. I believe psychedelics are the next CBD. That's kind of how I put it. I think I'm absolutely convinced that like microdosing and all that can change people's mental health for the better. It certainly helped me. I don't believe in like antidepressants and so on. I think we've got an epidemic of people jumping on pills before they try anything else, like going to the gym, ice baths, whatever it is. And I used to be on like antidepressants when I was like 18, never got on with it. And I'm like diagnosed as being bipolar, all this shit. And like, I don't really fucking, I'll speak about that like my video and shit. I don't take any medication for that, like refuse to. Loads of people are dealing with different shit. And I just think, especially in the UK or like Western culture broadly, has just jumped on the wrong fixes for things a lot. And I just believe, I just feel like I know in my gut that just psychedelics and particularly psilocybin and microdosing, in a therapeutic sense, not just tripping out your ass all the time, it can be very good for people. And I think there's obviously legislation change happening in like Colorado, legal in Amsterdam and so on. It's a very grey area. You can't sell DT psilocybin yet, but that's always been my vision. And the first step is to build a legal alternative, which is what Rainbow Dust is. That was my angle when I created that product. Obviously, it's not quite the same as microdosing, but, lion's mane, chaga, all that shit. Like mushrooms on the whole are definitely, it's a trend right now, but psychedelics specifically, because a lot of people get magic mushrooms and just mushrooms mixed up. I find that, by spending loads of money on Instagram ads, all the comments we get is, are these magic mushrooms, blah, blah, blah. It's because the brand is intentionally indicative of something a bit naughty, because it's pink packaging. It's called Rainbow Dust instead of mushroom coffee, which is super boring, by the way. And also just, even if psychedelics never happens, I just see this being like a Huel or an Athletic Greens. And just like broadly as a wellness brand, supplement brand, everything on the market is grey, black, brown, white packaging. It's so boring. Yeah. Coffee, mushroom coffee, like collagen pills, all this bullshit. I just wanted to do it completely different, turn on its head. It looks the opposite to everything else, although I'm sure there'll be a 1,000,001 copycats very soon. The packaging's beautiful, in my opinion. And yeah, this was really just me indulging my creative interest, but also combining it with a market that I think is very, very, very hot and is coming and is early, particularly in the UK. And also it's something with a longer term mission, which is like, I think important to be able to work on something long term. So I guess right now we're ultimately a supplement business, but long term, I really would like to think this can be a psychedelics business. But it's probably years off, to be honest. But this is the first step.
Where do you think would be the first place that you can sell to, if you have to guess?
Probably somewhere in like Canada. I mean, there's brands selling like actual psilocybin in Canada, like D2C now, but it's all like Bitcoin payment.
Okay.
It's like a very grey area. I think like selling, for example, a psilocybin rainbow dust, like a true psychedelic version, I can't see that happening in the UK for at least like 3 years plus. I don't even know. I would like to do like a trial run of something in a legal place, but geez, I haven't even started looking at the logistics of that. Because you could make it pretty easily, but then it's like, is it made in a legal place? We're a UK company, so is that allowed? I don't know.
Oh, you're a UK company?
Yeah, at least for now.
Yeah. When are you moving to Dubai?
You pay VAT bills and then you realise everyone's moving to Dubai for a reason.
Yeah, exactly, bro.
So, yeah.
1 sec. We'll cut. Wrong room. You got a tattoo recently?
No, it's fake.
Oh, you got a fake tattoo?
So it was the psilocybin chemical symbol.
Yeah, I thought I recognised because I'm sick. I messaged
so Christian Angermayer is some billionaire investor.
Okay.
That I really want to get his attention. So I should have. I need to send him a picture of that actually because he's got one. He's got that tattoo on his arm.
Do you know why I recognised it, right? Because I got this tattoo recently, right? And this was like...
I haven't got any tattoos.
This was my first one.
I'm tempted.
Oh, bro, if I've got a guy, he like literally like he's the most.
It's like line art spec.
He's like I didn't even know what I was getting going in. Like he like does like, but he's like one of the best in the world. He does like billionaires like.
What design is that?
It's not a design.
That's just made up.
He literally like creates it. Like I've got my this is my only thing here is ISER, which means internal state equals external reality. That's like the thing I'm like people know me for. But like the rest of it. But anyway, the reason I say it is because I was gonna get the ayahuasca symbol looks similar to that.
Oh, yeah.
And he was like, "What do you think of this?"
Yeah, someone messaged me that saying, "Is that DMT?"
Yeah, that's what I thought it was. When I saw that was me probably, mate. It was probably me. Or
might have been.
I don't know. I was.
It's just an Inkbox tattoo. Inkbox is a sick brand. It's
okay.
like temporary tattoos. I mean, it's genius actually. I wish I started that business.
What are you gonna get for your first tattoo?
I don't know. I'd probably get something like that. I've never got one up to this point. People always say they look at me and they think you look like someone that have tattoos.
Yeah.
But true. I was always very self-aware that I would change my mind within about a month, as I have with many.
That's
other
why
things.
You just get someone to do it, where you don't know what it's going to be.
I'm not risking that. But I would get something.
I'll show you his tattoos.
Like
you'll change your mind when you see what he does.
Yeah, I like to get something meaningful.
Something meaningful.
Like, I wouldn't just get like some fucking tribal thing, like a lot of people have.
Yeah.
I think I like shit.
Yeah.
I like small, like line arty stuff. So I think I just need to pull the trigger at some point and just commit to it.
I was always scared of it. I've also got a needle phobia, so that doesn't help.
Yeah, same. I hate injections and so on.
Yeah, bro. I told him, I was like, I'm probably going to pass out. And he was like, you'll be fine. I was like, 3 seconds.
Was that actually sore?
For the first like bit, it was painful. Like, I don't know why people say it's not. Maybe I'm just a little bitch. I don't know. But I was like, it hurts. Like, it definitely hurts. But then like once I like just sort of like got used to it, it was fine.
Yeah.
But it took like 5 hours. And it was like with a fine needle, so like apparently it hurts more when it's with like a super fine needle. I don't know.
Interesting.
But it was good. Like it was a great experience. And now like everyone says once you get your first one, you don't want to get everywhere. Like I was like,
a few mates that have gone like full sleeve after one tiny thing.
Yeah, I was like that won't be me. And then as soon as I'm done, I'm like, oh fuck. He's like you could bring it around here.
Yeah.
The only problem is it's $7,000 a day to work with this guy. So I'm like, well, I'm gonna have to.
A day?
Yeah.
Does that sound the price?
No. He's probably like 10x.
I definitely think that's one of probably the most obvious things in life to spend more money on.
No,
do not cheap out on a tattoo,
bro. That's exactly why
it's gonna be there forever.
Exactly, that's the thing. He was in Bali for 2 weeks. I was like, and I knew him, and I was like, he's got like 500,000 on Instagram. I was like, I messaged him.
Shit.
Yeah, he's like one of the best in the world. And I messaged him, didn't reply. A week later, I get an email from an assistant being like, "This is the date he's available. This is the prices. Do you want it? Yes or no?" I was just like, "Take my money. I'm there." Yeah. Traveled up to.
How long did that take?
It took like I was with him for the whole day. We ended up just like really chilling.
That was like $7,000.
Yeah.
What, pounds?
Euros.
Yeah, there's a lot to be fair, but it's definitely worth investing in.
Oh, I mean, to me, it's like if you're gonna get something like that, like work with the best, but one of the best in the world.
Because even if one line was wrong, you'd wish you'd paid.
Yeah, he adjusted like the placement like 5 times before doing it. Like these micro adjustments, I myself would never even realize. But now, like I see it, I'm like, oh yeah, the way it flows with the arm and all these different things, you just never fucking realize until you work with. I just like working with the best people in whatever I do. I just think it's cool just to meet people who are like. Who are just the best, whatever it is they do. You can be like a apple picker, but if you're like the best one in the world, like you're probably going to be interesting in some. Yeah,
exactly. That's very true.
All right, I made questions, so I'm going to see what else
Maybe I should get one while I'm here. Then I keep putting it off, but when's the right time going to come?
Well, actually, there is another really good artist coming here, so I can link you up with him. My mate's actually getting one by him. I'll show you his work after.
Yeah,
he's fucking good. Okay, so let's talk about traveling versus working from a base. So you're currently traveling.
I've done it all. Tried all the different ways of doing it.
I feel like you'll never just be one way or the other. I feel like you always do both. Like, what are your thoughts on travel? Like traveling
I've done the
versus
whole
being
nomad thing where you literally don't have a base other than like my parents' house where I came back to like once every 3 months, which isn't ideal. That was when I was younger. Then I've had a base in London ever since April 2019.
Okay.
I think having a base is useful. It's like HQ, whatever, like story shit there. And then I've traveled probably on average, like I say traveled, like I've probably been away like 9 or 10 times a year at least for like the past, so almost once a month for like the past 3-4 years. Even during COVID, like this year I felt like I was in London loads, but I've still been away like 9 times. When I say go away, that counts like a week in Marbella or whatever, but I'm always bringing my laptop with me. And people comment on my YouTube video actually, because I spoke about this, saying when you go away you should just not work. And that's fine, I get that. That's like a holiday. But the reason I'm able to go where I want, when I want, is because I'm working. Do you know what I mean? If I just didn't work ever, nothing would get done. And then
I did that for a year.
Wouldn't be very sustainable.
I did that for a year.
I also don't want to do that.
What
would you do at 11 a.m. on a Monday if you just weren't working?
Well, it's like,
would people just go to the beach or what? I'd get bored of that after about 10 minutes.
I think it's like a lot of people think that once you start making money, you'll then like live the life, but then it's not actually a fun life.
It's always a process.
I think like particularly it's a man thing. It's like a masculinity thing. Like if you're actually like living as a man naturally lives, you want to be working, building on something.
Yeah, go and hunt, like build something.
Yeah, it's also super unattractive. I like speak to women all the time. I like ask them because they say, "Oh, I want to spend all this time with you." It's like you don't really, because if you did,
the idea of
I've done that. I've done if you've ever done that with a girlfriend. She's like, "I want to see you, and I'm like, "All right," and then it ends up flipping on each other. Yeah, and then the attraction goes. I think you need to be away in that. That's why I asked if you did like any Muay Thai or anything like that. Because I think there was something good about just being humbled by being like physically attacked.
Yeah, I hear a lot about this. I should definitely try that.
It's good. There's a great place here called. You seen Soma?
Maybe.
Here. It's like right in the center next to Ball Gym. It's just something about like when you're physically under threat. You can just be doing pads or whatever. Yeah. It just activates something different inside of you. It's
Primal.
just It really is. It really is great. It's a really good thing. You should go. You got any mates who do it?
No, I see guys on Twitter doing that shit all the time.
That's the problem. You need that one mate who doesn't stop going on about it. And then
true.
And eventually you try it.
Yeah, I'm trying to get my mates into running. I feel like they're all fucking getting fat. So, but yeah, on the traveling point, I'm still trying to find that balance because part of me thought maybe like a year or two ago, I nearly got like an office in London and all that. And sometimes I think I want to have an office and like do the whole like Gymshark style thing where you have 100 people, 1,000 people now they've got in like an office, and that's what I want. That's more sustainable, blah blah blah. But then other days I'll be like, oh fuck it. I just, the whole point of why I started doing anything online originally is to have freedom. And if I take away my own freedom by having a lease on an office and employees that have to be in one place, do I really want that, or do I want a bit of both? But then it's like, I'm still trying to find that balance because when I'm back home, I tend to work from home. Like my flatmate runs a business as well. It works really well. But then other times I think, oh, is this a bit lonely? Should I be? And I'd go to co-work spaces like Soho Works or whatever. But then I get distracted by speaking to people. And it's like there's pros and cons to everything.
Yeah.
And then when I've been out here, I thought, am I just kidding myself and actually I'm getting nothing done? Or because I'm maybe like happier out here, because especially in the UK winter, I like enjoy the sun and shit. Does that mean actually, even if I work 50% less time, I'm getting more done because I'm more switched on and so on, arguably. So it's about figuring out what works for you. I still haven't figured out the perfect balance, but I think I had a generally pretty good balance over the past few years. I also think, like, especially in this economy, arguably, like, why the fuck would you want an office and like massive overheads when you can, e-commerce, online stuff, you can be incredibly lean, like leverage a lot of software and so on. So I'm still trying to figure it out. I think if you are going to travel, you should stay in a place like a month at least.
Yeah. Because
it takes probably a week to even get into a routine with like gym, where you're going to eat, the place you stay in, etc. If I was going to be in Bali longer term, I'd probably want a better villa, like one that has, maybe an office, or just go to a good co-work space. I don't know, but you need to build up a routine in places. So like if I was going to pick like 4 places to live year round, I was speaking about this with my mate the other day. I think a good combination is like London, Dubai, Marbella, Bali, because Like London, I like in summer. I basically only like it in summer.
Yeah.
Well, I say that. I do like London in general, but
it's nice in the spring.
Marbella, you could do like spring. It's like nice weather. Obviously Dubai. I'm not the biggest fan of Dubai, but it's growing on me, having been there a few times, and I know a lot of people that live there and trying to persuade me to like move there and shit. I can see why you'd go there in like November, December, January, and then Bali maybe fits in, maybe similar to Dubai, but you know, I think those 4 places I've had to pick out the top of my head, probably like the best places I've lived temporarily over the past few years, and have a good balance between like lifestyle and workability and like cost and shit.
Yeah. What do you like about Dubai? Because I'm not sold on it.
I'm not sold on it either. But I'm saying I'm maybe getting pushed.
What are the things that you
I can see the appeal during winter, particularly.
Right. Yeah.
It's like November, December, January, like dark depths of winter in the UK. I don't like the fact. I mean, I've always spoken shit about Dubai on the pod because I think so many people flock there because it's become almost like a meme now. I'm moving to Dubai to save on tax and all this bullshit. I like the weather. I think it's very convenient. But then I actually think Bali has almost everything Dubai has, plus a lot of other benefits, i.e. like not every girl is a hooker. Like, you know, I think the lifestyle here is actually better because like there's greenery and like, whereas Dubai is just fucking desert. It's basically a desert with a load of money.
That's the thing. That was the one thing, because I need like, I've always been living near a park or need like a forest. I'm just that kind of guy. Like when I've been to Dubai, I've like hunted for green lights. Do they have parks?
Way harder to like eat
parks
healthy in Dubai and shit.
Yeah.
I've only been like 3 times.
Okay,
but
I've only been once. Yeah.
I've never felt as settled there. And I mean, I could have just not seen the right side or whatever, but I know plenty of people that live there and love it. So I'm sure it is good. But if I had to pick Dubai or Bali, it'd be Bali a million times. But there's pros and cons for everything. Like time zone wise, with the UK business, Bali's definitely harder.
Yeah.
But then actually, I say I got a UK business. Like all my team are remote, and one of them's in fucking Hong Kong anyway. So the time zone's perfect for her here. But yeah, I think Bali. I've always said to people, Bali is if you've never done the nomad thing before, go to Canggu. I think it's like the starting point.
Yeah. Because
it's very easy to meet people here as well, even if you know no one.
I think people come here to meet people. That's the thing I've noticed. Like I'll literally be at some spot, someone with a UK accent will be like, "Oh, you have the same kind of voice as me," and then like now we're going to a party together.
Especially like Canggu, like there are tourists, but most people are probably actually like working online and shit.
Yeah.
Whether they're a fucking freelancer, entrepreneur, whatever it is. But yeah, I think that's what's good about it.
I've met one guy with a job the whole time I've been here.
Yeah.
I've met more than 2 people. It's wild. And I think that makes a big difference, right? And what you talked about earlier with like network, you alluded to like that was one of the biggest things that like kind of positively impacted you in some way.
Yeah.
Like, was that like an intention? Because I think that's a big thing for a lot of people. Like, one of the big pain points as to why guys come into like my mastermind coaching program is just that they're alone and they just want to be in a community of people, right?
Yeah.
And it was the same for me. So like, how did you do that? Was that intentional? Did it just come as you having a lot of success?
It's literally the most common question I ever get
Yeah.
on the pod and on DM. It's probably like 5 times a day. It's how do I meet people and like, can I meet you and all this shit? And I've always joked because a lot of people now, I think networking is almost treated like this like formal scientific thing. Whereas for me, it was just getting drunk with people in Asia and then you meet them. And
yeah, so it was more casual.
So and people seem to have this strange idea I was born with a group of entrepreneur mates. I didn't know fucking anyone in the whole of England that was an entrepreneur. So that's why I went to Singapore on a one-way flight when I was like 21, went to an event, shitting myself, met a few people, and then you meet people that are on like the same level as you. And then I think as you do things, you build more credibility and have a more interesting story. And then, you know, you meet people that they know, that they know, that they know. But it's not going to happen if you've sat in your mum's fucking basement. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, stereotypically. And then, yeah, I've met people through other people. So I think the most important thing is first just going somewhere because it's going to be uncomfortable. It's like going on a first fucking date. You'd probably be nervous, but you have to do it at some point. And then you meet other people's friends, network. And then I think probably most importantly is the fact that you're actually doing something remotely interesting. Because if you're just, I don't know, you haven't done anything ever, not much to talk about. And then just being yourself and being a decent person because no one likes hanging around with cunts. And there's probably quite a lot of them.
I think they're allowed to hang out with each other, to be fair.
Yeah, probably.
That's how it works. So get on a flight and go somewhere, basically. I think it's just get out your comfort zone.
Yeah, honestly,
right?
like
it's going to be uncomfortable the first time you do it. Like that's it. Like,
to be honest, I've probably got a bit lax on the whole networking thing because I feel like I've got a really good one that I've probably like stopped meeting new people, but I probably should keep doing it. Yeah. But even today, I probably part of me was like, I can't be fucked doing a pod. Some guy I don't know, but then you meet them and they're normally just like you.
Yeah. I'm like that as well. Like I say no to things all the time, but whenever I do it and it's a good group of people, I'm always glad that I did. But it depends if I'm like more naturally introverted anyway. So like I prefer a little bit to spend time by myself. I get more energy that way compared to being around other people, which I like. But if I have to choose, I'd be by myself like a bit more. So it depends what your personality type's like.
Yeah. And honestly, like I said, the best networking I've actually ever done is just
Getting drunk.
like a strategic send, I call it. Like if I can go and get drunk with, I think I made a definition of this. Like if you can go and get drunk with someone of potential influence or importance, then you should probably do that, because usually when people are drunk, they're more open, and it's a great way to meet people. So yeah.
Does that tie in with any of your Bali stories?
Well, for example, one of my investors I first met 5 years ago when he just launched his business before he sold it recently, like years before. And we were just drunk at some affiliate world thing. I think it was San Diego, some e-commerce conference. And then we didn't speak to each other for like 5 years. And then I messaged him and we had that context and he came on the pod. So you also plant seeds by meeting people ultimately, because whether that person you work together now or you don't, like maybe in years to come, there'll be a contact that is later useful. That's not to say you should go into everything with like a fucking initiative or whatever, but yeah, I don't know. I've had some crazy, like, I mean, what's the most crooked one? I remember going to some e-commerce thing with this guy called Nick Peroni. He's like an OG like guru in the Philippines for a week. That was probably like the most high risk networking thing I've ever done. We were in like Baguio City, which is like this beautiful mountaintop city in the Philippines, but it's like the equivalent of going to like Scunthorpe in the UK, in the sense that tourists.
I've got clients in Scunthorpe, so don't say anything bad about sunny.
It's
sunny
not a tourist place.
Yeah.
People will go to Manila or whatever, like Cebu, the islands and shit. And we were like the only. I mean, there's some very weird stories which I'm not going to say, but yeah, it's just interesting doing shit with. There's always good stories that come out of it. I've got plenty of them.
I think you should give a little bit of that story for the people.
Well,
everyone's hanging on now.
I'll say in summary that the weirdest thing that happened there was I ended up in the top of like a domestic like fucking tower block, probably like the equivalent of like a council estate in Baguio City in the Philippines, with like 4 ladyboys in a room at like 4 a.m. I don't know how that happened, but it did happen and I survived. Probably not the safest thing to do, to be fair, as like a solo tourist at the time. But as in like the other guys weren't there, they were at the hotel and shit. It was weird. I've done some weird shit. Strange niche situations that tend to crop up.
There you go. For everyone asking how to network, you now have this to look back to.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
I had a mindset shift around this kind of stuff, because I was never like a networker type guy. It always just happened naturally. Like I had friends, I never had to put an effort to it, right? But then I had a mindset shift, which was that actually, if you look at networking, imagine like you're spending some money on a Facebook ad for your brand, right? You're going to expect some kind of return, obviously, otherwise you wouldn't do it, right? I think it's basically the same with networking. It's like if you find someone who's interesting, take them out to dinner, it's like obviously they're not going to go and like give you 2 times the money you gave them, but like the ROI on that will probably be infinitely more than if you just fucking went and had dinner by yourself, right? So I actually think that's kind of a way to look at it. Like if you want to meet people, it's like look at it like an investment, not because you want to get something back, but just an investment of being around better, cooler, high caliber people, and like look at it like that way, because then suddenly it's like, oh, actually it's worth doing. Like getting that flight to go to that conference, someone might go, oh, you know, it cost $5,000 or whatever for the trip. That doesn't seem like a good use of money, but actually it's how you met like probably some of the most influential people, which led to a series of different events that would never have happened if you didn't do that.
Yeah, and it's also a massive momentum thing, because like it's like with anything, you meet more people, then you meet more people, and then you know maybe build credibility in a space or whatever, and then more people want to meet you. It's like a flywheel.
Yeah.
But you have to start, and it's always feels a bit slow at the start, like with anything. And then I also think putting content out helps, but then you shouldn't put content out if you've got nothing to fucking speak about. There's way too many 19-year-old gurus that have literally never been through anything, and it's just like embarrassing.
But I think you can still do it, right? I met a guy here.
Yeah, I think if you're documenting, I think if you're trying to give advice when you're 19, and there's probably exceptions, but that doesn't mean it's on average, then it's just like it's a bit embarrassing. It depends what the context is.
I was in BWork, you know, the co-working space, a few weeks ago, and I saw this guy watching an Iman Ghazi video. Yeah. So I was just standing there messaging, and he came back to his laptop, and I was like, "Oh, you're right." Like, started talking to him, and I think he was 19, moved to Bali to start his agency. He was doing $3,000 a month with his agency, right? And I watched one of his pieces of content, and he showed me like Iman sent him a picture of him watching this guy's video. Like, they didn't know each other, but he was like, just keep up the good work sort of thing, right? Yeah. And he then literally like spiraled him to be like, fuck, actually, I'm going to keep just sharing what I'm doing. He's not coming from like a guru. He's just being like, yo, this is what I did. And then
I wish I'd done more of that, by the way.
Well, this is the thing.
So just, if anything, it's nostalgic.
He left weeks later because I invited him to some parties, some different things, and he was doing 10K a month, which was his whole series was about road to 10K a month. And he like kind of fucked himself because he did it like 10 times quicker than he expected to. But I think that's good because then it's like, and that's what I've shifted to, like even watching some of your stuff, seeing how you document it. Doesn't matter what level you're at. I think just documentation. Gary Vee was right all those fucking years ago.
Yeah, it's true.
You know,
and it's not for everyone. Like, I enjoy just doing it because probably part of me that still wants to be like a YouTuber. Like back in the day, I wanted to be a YouTuber or whatever. I used to make music covers when I was like 17, which are never that good, but they're still there. You can go find them. But I wish I'd documented more in like the past 5 years. There was like a 2-year period where I did it. I didn't do anything for like 3 years, and I just wish I'd done it. Because imagine being like, I don't know, fucking Casey Neistat or whatever, or some other YouTuber that's daily vlogged for 10 years, like on average every day or whatever. Looking back at that in 40 years time, that's like a photo album on steroids.
Imagine if Steve Jobs had a vlog.
Yeah, exactly.
That would be like the most.
Well, the next Steve Jobs probably will.
Yeah,
they just don't know who they are yet.
That's true.
So I think even if you don't post it, just make an Instagram account that's private or whatever. Just document shit. So I'm glad I'm doing it now, but I wish I'd done it more. Because even looking back at stuff 6 months ago, it's quite interesting.
What do you learn? What do you learn when you look back about yourself?
Well, probably that everything's temporary. So if something's going well, it can also go wrong. But something felt like it was going wrong at the time. It's probably not going wrong now. So, time changes things. So
yeah, I think that. But do you ever look back and think like, oh, that's actually like a good piece of advice, or that's actually like quite true, like things that you said in the past, and then you like.
Yeah, sometimes I watch back my own shit, and I think I've got better at like. Also, even just watching the first pod, like my voice sounds different. I feel like I've got more articulate with words because you practice it, and like look less nervous doing a podcast or whatever. Because when you start anything, I remember shitting myself. Yeah. But if you don't do the first one, the first thing is always the hardest, obviously. But that's the beauty of like a huge. I wish I'd just focused on content and YouTube earlier, because I mean we were talking about Iman before. Like look at his growth in like the past year. But I think that's come because he had 7 years before of making videos, which people look past. But it's like exponential. It's like most things. It like might take ages. I feel like that with my pod. It's like it's felt fucking slow in the past year. I just do it anyway. But like I really feel like it's gonna hit an inflection point. I probably need to start doing it in high quality studios like this for a start instead of on my fucking iPhone.
That can be your niche. That can be your niche though.
Yeah, I mean it works, but I would like to up the production quality. But yeah, content is just mad because it's evergreen. Like you're stacking something you're compounding something rather than stacking it. Do you know what I mean? Like you're not starting again like every day, because like videos from a year ago still getting views. So like it's like this flywheel. So that's why I wish I'd started earlier, honestly, doing like YouTube properly. And also like YouTube, being a YouTuber is like a legitimate career now. Yeah. Like we've got past the point of that being like some weird shit that you take the piss out of your mates doing, which it used to be for me when I was doing YouTube covers.
I remember that.
But now it's almost like if you don't have some sort of personal brand, or even just like a decent, Instagram for me is like a dating app, to be honest. But like Twitter is like a business tool. I don't know if you're on Twitter much, but I didn't even know. I barely even knew what Twitter was like a year ago. I knew what it was, but I didn't think people used it. But now there's like the whole money Twitter corner of the internet, just like all entrepreneurs, and now I've got a big following on there, and like the organic reach is mad. So, yeah, I think that's another thing. If you're trying to network, you should definitely just have a profile, at least of who you are. Because I'll get a DM from some anonymous account that's private. Oh, the fuck, I don't know who you are. There's not even a picture of your face. Yeah. So, yeah, just have a decent social media profile, even if you don't put content out as such.
What's like, apart from networking, what are like the other biggest questions guys reach out to you and ask?
Probably like how to start or some shit. Or like what content to watch. And I just say watch every single podcast. And if you don't learn more than you would in uni, then I'll be amazed. Because that's the beauty of the internet. You can literally, I think there's like some saying where it's like we are like drowning in knowledge but starved of wisdom or some bullshit. I don't know what it is. But the point is like everything you need to know basically ever is on the internet. It's more just about bothering to consume it rather than some mindless TikTok video, which, you know, it's the create or consume mindset, isn't it? If you create something, you'll probably do all right. Whereas 99% of people just consume. Do you know what I mean? Like, most people just scroll videos all day. If you just fucking either made your own video or built your own thing instead of buying from this brand all the time, make your own brand. Because basically the world is consumers and creators, and genuinely the creators are the ones that are reaping the rewards, whether that's creative freedom or money. And you know, everyone buy, an easy example is everyone's buying shit on Amazon. Look at Jeff Bezos, who made Amazon. Obviously that's a very niche unicorn example, but it's an easy to understand one. But that on a smaller scale, like people building shit are no smarter than you usually.
But it's hard though, right? Because half of the like downside that you get from watching social media, like mental health struggles, like comparison, comes with that, right? So like, do you still experience that? Like when you look at other people online, it's like a big thing that a lot of guys come to me with. They'll be like, you know,
what, envious of? They feel like they're not winning. It's
not even envy. It's just they just feel like shit because everyone around them everyone who they're following is posting this stuff.
Yeah, I remember feeling like that, and I think the first point on that is I know for a fact, and it's easier to understand when you get a bit of experience and you realize that maybe you are one of those people that look like that, and you know yourself that you're not. And like I know for a fact that there's people on Twitter, Instagram, whatever, that look like they're doing this, and it's all smoke and mirrors.
Yeah.
And not everyone knows that, 'cause especially when you have less context and experience, it's harder to tell what's real and fake, which is why so many people fall for like Forex course scams or whatever, because they see this guy that's driving the Lambo and they don't realize that it's fucking heavily financed and he's living at his mum's house and it's all facade. Not that that's the case for everyone. There are some very successful people that are legit, but because they never share, because like even the most successful people, it's not like they're doing that shit all the time. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Even like Iman, like he's working,
grinding. He's working the time.
Yeah,
I guarantee he's working harder than anyone that watches videos.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's one example. So I think just bear that in mind. And you know, most of the internet smoke and mirrors, particularly like Instagram. Like Twitter's a bit different, I find. But even then, a lot of people have a motive to sell you something. Do you know what I mean? So especially if it's like personal brand space, like course gurus and so on.
Who do you follow who actually like get value from, or you like, whether it's actual learning stuff or like entertainment, whatever?
I think the best podcast I ever listened to, and I don't listen to it anymore, it's MFCEO by Andy Frisella. So that was the first thing.
Oh yeah, he does the. Is he the 75 hard?
Yeah. So I listened to all his shit when I was like younger, like 21. When he did MFCEO, and now he has another one, which I don't listen to as much. But probably him is like where I started. I wouldn't really say I listen to that many people specifically anymore. It's more just like random shit and maybe people that I actually know that I get advice from. But I didn't have those people in my life before, so you kind of have to choose. It's like Gary Vee says, you just put like positivity in your ear. Well, not positivity, but like useful shit.
Yeah.
Like if you're some broke 18-year-old, go and listen to David Goggins and shit and learn about working hard. And I like David Goggins actually. That's something I got onto a lot, especially when I started doing marathon training. It's not entrepreneurship or anything, but it's more like mindset stuff and being just a hard motherfucker, which I relate to a lot, especially because I'm driven more by like kind of hateful energy, like prove you wrong sort of shit, which I just think some people are, and I'm just aware that I am. But then in terms of like entrepreneurs and stuff, yeah, probably more just people in like my actual circle that I look up to or whatever. Because like I said, I think as you get older and more experienced, you can be a bit more specific. Whereas when you're starting, you listen to Gary Vee.
Yeah.
Because that's just like mass market. And that's definitely better to listen to than watching Love Island. So, yeah, I think as you get older, you don't listen to the mass market stuff maybe as much.
Do you think being driven by that like chip will last forever, or do you think there'll come a point where like that doesn't motivate you anymore?
I don't know. Yeah, I've often thought about this. Maybe when I feel like I've made it, that'll go away. But then you probably never feel like you made it because there's always a fucking carrot on the end of a stick. And the things you wanted 3 years ago, you now don't appreciate, and you want something else. So I don't know if it'll always move, and there'll be like new people that I'm comparing myself to, or like new fictitious enemies in my head that I need to beat or whatever. But that's just the way I'm driven. I don't know if like one day I'll meet like some fucking spiritual woman and she'll like change the way I view the world. Maybe that's just like, that's some other fantasy in my head maybe. But no, definitely for now. Like even when I go to the gym and stuff, I like always just put like heavy shit on, and I don't know, I like getting in that headspace.
Yeah. I think you can have both. That's one thing I've gone down that whole path, and like my girlfriend's super spiritual, and it's like when I'm with her,
yeah,
I'm like living in a totally different energy. But then when I'm working or in the gym, I'm like back in that like warrior mindset. And I actually think like from experiencing both, I think the best answer is having both. Because I think you can be too much in that, and I think that can lead to like burnout, and that's what leads to like for me, like, I had like mental health struggles and stuff like that in the past. And like, who do you want to go to when you have like the worst fucking day or you're sick? You just want to like speak to your mum, right? Or speak to your girlfriend, or you don't want to speak to a guy, right? Like, you're not gonna speak to your mate, be like, oh, I feel really bad. Like, he's not gonna give a fuck.
Yeah, I've always struggled with that. Like opening up to male friends. Probably like one guy I speak to.
Yeah. Well, I think it's just because most men don't know how to like access the feminine part of them, because it's like seen as weak, or vulnerability isn't good or whatever.
Yeah, I completely agree.
I feel like you've got a bit of that though. I can see like.
Oh no, I definitely do.
Yeah,
because like, you're like very romantic side of me and shit. Yeah. But a lot of people say it's really cringe, but I just don't even care. But then I also think, ironically, like pretending to be like a fucking alpha G, all this bullshit all the time is actually like the least masculine thing ever, because you're so scared of what other people think.
Well, it's
instead
like
of just being yourself.
If you're so
I also know that that I'm not some loser as well, because I've proven it. Like even with like in the gym and shit, I know that I'll outwork anyone. So that's kind of a masculine thing. But I'm also not afraid to say that I listen to fucking like 1975 songs late at night and probably think about a girl that I thought would work out, and like the pink lights and that whole aesthetic. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I'm not this guy that pretends I only listen to Drake and Future. And there is a time and a place for that, and I love that shit. But I listen to, like, some corny shit. I like Taylor Swift as well. Do you know what I mean? It's just people can't admit that. And that's because they don't know who they are enough yet, I think.
Yeah.
They're too scared of what people think. But that's just the world we live in.
Were you always like that? Or did that integration of the other side come to you later on in life?
I was always like that. I probably didn't put it out there as much.
Yeah.
Because, well, like with YouTube and stuff, I've been very honest from day one. But then you also realize, I think you get like confidence through experience, and you realize actually being yourself probably like I said before, attracts the right people anyway. Whereas if you've never, I don't know, been honest online or whatever it is, and you're always putting this facade up, you maybe don't know how that's going to go down with a certain group of friends, or I don't know, if you're like in school and you don't know if the people around you, your sort of tribe or whatever, it's maybe different. But as you get older, you realize that you're going to have to be yourself anyway. Otherwise, the whole fucking brand's going to wear off at some point. You'll be exposed.
I don't think a lot of people do know that, though. I think that's actually taken for granted. I'd say most people, if you ask the average guy, like, who are you? They wouldn't have a clue what to answer to that. I don't think most people do, like, know how to be themselves, to be honest. I mean, do you?
Yeah, it's cause I'm probably still figuring it out. But it's because you're in a fucking funnel, which is, like, not your choice from the first 18, 20 years of life, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like, you go to school, you go to uni probably, then you get pushed into a grad scheme because that's what everyone else does. It's kind of scary, really. It's like a conveyor belt, and it's like the Matrix or whatever, but that's kind of how it has to be. I don't have a better answer like right now for how the world should be for like the first 20 years of life, because we need some system to guide people, otherwise the world will be a bit chaotic. But yeah, it's an interesting one. I think you genuinely know what you want to do. Like, people deep down know what they'd rather be doing, probably. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, if you're on some job you hate, you probably know it's not for you. But the risk is that, and this is what I was kind of fortunate never to get stuck in, like, you go and get a grad job, say, and I keep referring to that because it's like a meme at this point, and then you hang around with the wrong people, and then, you know, you put your dreams off or whatever it is, and before you know it, you're fucking 30, you've got a kid, you've got a mortgage, and the job you hate. That's my idea. That was always my idea of, like, hell.
Same.
Yeah. But I never went down that route. And then once you see the other side of, like, you can kind of do what you want as long as you're willing to work really hard and be consistent, then you're never going to go back to that.
So I think I said to you before, I was like, how did you escape the Matrix or something? You were like, I was never in the Matrix.
Yeah, I wasn't, because I think I knew when I was 14 or even 10 years old that I wasn't going to be normal, whatever that was. And then before I even finished uni, I started a business and dropped out. So, like, and then it's definitely not luck. It was just following my intuition and having some balls to do it. And then once you meet people around you that are doing similar shit, that's like signed and sealed at that point. You ain't going back.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Because then that's all you ever know. It's all I've ever known is working for myself. Quite literally, the last job I ever had was working in a burger bar while I was at uni, and I was running ads on my break. So, like, I also started from the fucking bottom, like most people. So yeah, I've never gone into like the normal world, I suppose. I'm very aware of it though as well, because I think it's important to have context on like society and not have your fucking head in the clouds. And do you know what I mean? Like, a lot of people maybe especially ones that come from privileged backgrounds, probably don't know how tough life is for a lot of people. Which is also, I think it's important to travel and see like poverty and shit, because you maintain perspective. Because often, I spoke about this on my own video recently. Like, I sometimes think, oh, like I'm pissed off because I was doing bigger numbers 2 years ago than I am with my brand right now, which is true. But like, it's incomparable to business anyway, because this is much better, subscription, custom product, all that shit. And then I've got mates doing 30 million quid a year that are my age and one that's younger. But that's because I'm hanging around with 0.001% people, which I'm very fortunate enough to do, you know, at least financially, 0. Whatever. But then you can't lose perspective on the fact that there's some don down the road here or, you know, anywhere in the world that's making £1 a day and can't even eat. And like, their idea of heaven would be just having the opportunity to have an internet connection. So I think it's important to maintain some perspective, which you definitely get more of by traveling and so on. It's a bit of a stereotype, like you should see the others, like how the other half live or whatever. Because just being in like a first world country, I think you're in like the top 10% economically.
Yeah.
Which people don't actually realize how mad that is if you think about that. So that doesn't mean you can't have problems if you're making money and shit. Of course you can, but it's a useful perspective. And I sometimes lose it because I've set the bar so high for myself, which is definitely a blessing and a curse because it means I'm ambitious and whatever and I have successful friends. But it also means that you sometimes lose perspective. It's like, it's pretty fortunate to be able to do your own shit and travel and so on. Do you know what I mean? So, yeah.
I think, yeah, for me, it's like my dad came here from Africa, like lost all his businesses, had to come here with nothing, start again, holes in his shoes, built his businesses up again. And like, I saw him working like my whole childhood. Like, well, I didn't really see him because he was working. Yeah. And like, I always felt like, oh, like, why don't you just come and spend time with me? Why don't you just, you know, give some time for us? And he did his best, bless him. But that always reminds me of like, he could have just easily been shot when he was trying to escape from the country where he was. And like, he wasn't. And there were times when he nearly was, unlike grandparents or whatever. So it's just like the way I was thinking about it is like one decision different could have led to a completely different life.
Yeah.
I think when you like look at it like that, it's hard not to be just like, fuck, all right, well, grateful, I guess.
Yeah, I'm not a very grateful person by default. I'm trying to get better at it.
Do you, I think you don't think gratitude though, you feel gratitude, right? How much do you like feel?
Yeah, I think because I felt like I drew a really bad hand in the past year. I kind of felt a lot of bitterness and resentment towards the world, honestly.
Yeah. And
that's probably like the first time I've said that. Whereas before I felt like I had what I deserved. I was doing well to work my fucking ass off. And then I felt like I just drew the short straw for like a year, which in hindsight maybe was meant to happen or whatever. But I definitely was like envious of my friends that didn't happen to.
Yeah.
And I've said that to them. So maybe that's tarnished my view of like reality and being grateful for like normal shit. Because I felt like I should have been further ahead.
Yeah.
But get there eventually.
Does part of you like that perspective because you know that it drives you to be better and more successful in a way? Like the fact that you do have that.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely better to feel like a small fish in a big pond, like I said before, than feel like you're winning everything because, I don't know, the people you hang around with aren't that ambitious or whatever. So, yeah, like if you feel like you're doing really well, I think you should probably go somewhere else if you are ambitious. Because you should always feel like, I don't know, at least for me, like you have something to prove and people to chase. I think that's better than, depends what you're trying to achieve, of course, but I think that's definitely better if you're trying to build a business and you're very ambitious and so on. You probably should try and normalize like mad level of success, at least hang around with people that are actually doing it, not just like fronting or talking about it.
I met a lot of like the guys who I associate myself with now who are like ahead of me through like courses, masterminds, that kind of stuff. Are you in that kind of, what do you need that kind of stuff for what you're doing?
I did a Facebook ads course when I was like 21. It's the only course I ever bought. It's pretty good.
Well,
Ben Malol's course. He was like an OG.
Who was the guy?
Ben Malol.
Oh, I remember that dude.
I don't know if he's still around.
I remember him. Yeah. He was like an Asian.
Yeah, he was. Right? That just goes to show though, because like now I kind of laugh at that, but like when I knew nothing, that was incredibly valuable because he knew more than I did. And
I actually bought his course as well.
I don't remember it now, but it's probably did something.
A little bit outdated, but
yeah, it would be now completely.
So you bought one course, and did you meet anyone through that, or you just went to learn the knowledge?
Just learned some shit. Yeah, other than that, like I used to be in like Facebook groups and so on. That's kind of how I met people originally before like went to events and so on. But other than that, I kind of just figured it out myself to an extent, and just like friends, and then just watch more. Generally just friends. Like, what are they working on? Talking to them.
What's the secret to Facebook ads in 2023?
Well, I haven't run my own ads for like 3 years. I spent millions on ads myself back in the day. I used to be in the ad account like 2 hours a day. I would say, don't do it yourself. Get an agency and focus on creative.
How the fuck do you find a good agency?
I've worked with 7 and 6 of them are shit, so it's very hard. So experience is one thing. I think just with agencies, broadly speaking, try and make it performance incentivized. Otherwise, they're just going to rinse you on a retainer and don't give a fuck.
Yeah.
Most won't do that if you're a new brand, to be honest, because you won't have enough scale. But yeah, like, it's difficult. Probably do it yourself so you have enough understanding with media buying, which is what I did for years. But then eventually you get to the point where you don't actually know enough and it's too time consuming, and it would be like ROI negative to do it yourself. So yeah, that's probably what I'd say. But agencies are tough. There's so many agencies now as well, because Iman's probably produced about 100,000 new agencies, and some of them are probably great, but some of them are probably really shit as well. So,
well, most of them just hire a contractor from Upwork.
Yeah, exactly. That's not a legit agency. This is like some freelancer finessing people.
Yeah,
but everyone's got to make some money somehow. So
yeah. So what does the day to day look like? Is it just calls, meetings, or are you like?
Well, in Barley it's probably a bit different. I mean, genuinely, I try and do shit that needs to be done in the morning, like deep work or whatever, which is like become a buzzword now, but it is true. Like, I don't eat breakfast, Yeah, I often wonder.
You're a real entrepreneur now. Now I know you're legit. That you don't eat breakfast.
Yeah, well, I don't know anyone that eats breakfast. I don't know how people work eating breakfast, honestly. Yeah. Like, I've tried just having one meal a day as well, going super hard, but I found that a bit difficult. So yeah, generally I'll do shit that needs to be done in the morning. Try and focus on needle moving stuff. I probably still get stuck in like the day to day a bit too much. Less so than I used to, because I have like a team now and shit. They're actually good. Whereas in the past it was not necessarily the best people working with me, and like VAs and shit, a bit less skilled, shall we say. But yeah, just a lot of calls and a lot of planning shit, I suppose.
Yeah.
I'm still way too stuck in like emails and stuff that I really need to get someone to like filter shit for me, so I can just like do important stuff. Because yeah, it is true. You need to work on the business, not in the business. It's such a stereotype, but it's true. And what's actually moving the needle? Do you know what I mean? Like, I can either spend 2 hours going through emails every day to get so fucking many, or I could spend half an hour or 2 hours hiring someone to, I don't know, maybe automate that or whatever it is. So I'm not very good at that, to be honest. I'm not the most organized person. I'm not very good at systems, really shit at hiring typically. So I'm still trying to work it out. But yeah, I suppose now, particularly now I have investors and shit, I focus a lot on like reports and like what's actually happening. What can I do that's actually going to solve a problem? For example, rather than just spend more on ads, which I've been struggling to do in like the past month particularly, we've kind of hit a bottleneck because we're only running ads to the UK. So now I'm like, all right, we need to localize fulfillment to Europe so we can scale in Germany, for example. Instead of just focusing on the same thing, it's like, all right, how can we scale horizontally a bit and think more logically? And then trying to get into retail right now, like Holland and Barrett, for example, whereas in the past I was always just D2C, like, and Amazon as well. So I never used to do Amazon. Trying to grow Amazon a lot right now. So just being more logical about things, whereas in the past I'd maybe just Chad scaled a bit, and like one thing that was working, I just double down on that. But then, that's not how you build a valuable business, because you can't be so reliant on one channel. And I think probably most people are, including me right now, like Instagram, website. That's it, pretty much.
What about TikTok?
I haven't made TikTok work, so I'm trying to make that work. Amazon starting to look good, so we're going to launch in Amazon, Germany, America, all that shit. Which in the past I would never have done, because it was like too much admin. I just wanted to go quick. But I've learned from the past, you need to diversify, just be a bit more logical about things and what's going to work long term, rather than just trying to scale as quick as possible, which I made the mistake of doing in 2020. So,
do you enjoy solving business problems like that? Does it make you actually feel good when you like solve that kind of problem? Like, okay, cool, we're going to use this acquisition channel instead now, versus like if you're creating.
Yeah, I mean, there's literally always constant problems. Like, I have this mad like fuck off unicorn spreadsheet, I call it, or some shit. It's like the entire business in one spreadsheet, and it's like all the numbers, and then I have like a sheet which is like problems, and then anything that's like a big problem is in there, and it's in there until it's fixed. Do you know what I mean? Sometimes it's in there for 2 months, but it's in there. So I think, funny thing I've realized, I think a lot of people think they're working towards a point where they have all the money they need, and then they just don't work. That's like the the American dream or whatever. You build a business, sell it, you get really rich, and you sit on the beach. But I honestly reckon if you put most people in that position, after about a week, they'd be so bored. And speaking to Jimmy, who's very wealthy, the guy I mentioned before, and you won't mind me saying this, like, he's sold the business, he's still working on it, but he's fucking really bored. He has all the money in the world. He wants something else to work on now.
Yeah.
It's a nice problem to have, of course, compared to 99.9% of people, but it's like, fuck, you actually... So then it's like, he says to me, like, what would you do? And I'm thinking, it's an interesting thought experiment for me, because I'm not there. I would like to be in that position. But then it comes back to, well, you're going to want to work on something anyway. So actually, even if stuff feels hard or not necessarily fun all the time, because it's never going to be fun all the time, nor should it be, because it wouldn't, then by definition, it wouldn't be fun if nothing was boring or bad. But like, you get a lot of satisfaction out of working on something. Even if you think you'd want to retire and sit on the beach, you wouldn't. You want to do the next thing. You might just have different worries that aren't monetary or whatever it is. Do you know what I mean? So, yeah, that's something I think about, because often I think, oh, this is hard and this is fucking stressful, whatever. But that's what we're built for. You have to work on something. Like you said before, like, especially as a man, I think you want to conquer shit. Like, even if it's a small task, you got to have some project to work on. Otherwise, you just get bored. I mean, I know I would. I fucking hate sitting down watching TV. I mean, granted, not all the time. Like, if I'm watching some cozy movie with some beautiful girl or whatever, that's a bit different. But that doesn't happen all the time. So, yeah, I think quite an interesting way to look at what you work on is, like, if you had all the money in the world, what would you work on? Then you should probably work on that now, and you might end up with a lot of money, actually, because you'd be passionate about it. That's kind of how I feel about this brand. Yeah. If I was a billionaire, I'd probably still work on this and probably do the pod.
What else would you do if you were a billionaire right now?
Buy a 20,000 square foot house with an underground garage and put like a fucking pink Bugatti Chiron in there, something like that. But other than that, probably not much would be different. I'd just buy some silly cars again.
Do you think you'd be happier?
Honestly. Maybe not. Maybe I'd be less stressed about certain things, but
hard to know until you're there, right? It's like everyone says, like, money can't buy happiness, but it's like, well, until you've gone through that, you kind of need to experience it. And I actually disagree with that statement anyway. I think it does actually buy a degree of happiness.
I think it removes certain stresses.
I think that is happiness. I think happiness is the absence of unhappiness, to be honest.
Yeah, interesting. That's very Buddha.
Is it?
I don't know. It sounds very Zen.
I copied it from him. No, I'm joking. I don't really. All right, cool. How into conspiracy theories and stuff are you? I'm gonna guess not very much.
Well, I like a lot of that shit. I think most conspiracy theories are probably true.
Yeah, conspiratory facts.
I just basically, if the masses think it, I generally don't.
Did you see what Elon said when he overtook Twitter?
No, I might have seen it.
Well, I'm not even on Twitter, so you should know this. He basically tweeted, and it was in an interview. He said most of the conspiracy. Well, he said all of the conspiracy theories about Twitter turned out to be true, and he just said it in a flippant comment in the conversation. But when you think about how mad, well, he fucking said it was, and he's the one managing the company. So it's like,
yeah, I mean, I think the more, it's funny because like my twin brother is the exact opposite to me. We're non-identical, but he views the world opposite to me in every way. COVID's a great example, and that's a very controversial one. Videos seem to go like disappearing off the internet
and people sometimes.
Yeah, but like we completely viewed everything differently on that, and that was obviously a big one that had a lot of conspiracy theories. There's loads of things, isn't there? But yeah, I've watched some weird documentaries in my time.
Did any of them have the name Cabal in them, by any chance?
The what? Probably not. I don't know. Unless that's a code word.
All right. Yeah, maybe it is.
You have to tell me after.
We'll have to be careful what we say on YouTube.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So a little bit, but don't go down the crazy rabbit hole.
Yeah, I just think obviously Andrew Tate speaks about a lot of this shit, and I think a lot of what he says is true.
Yeah.
Like a lot of them are uncomfortable truths. You know, I don't necessarily think like the government wants the best for a lot of people, and I don't know. Like, I think you have to think for yourself, and it's a surprising amount of people seem to just literally believe whatever the news says, which I find wild. And then you're the conspiracy theorist if you don't, which is funny, but a lot of things have turned out to be true that a lot of people said were lies over the past few years, you know, about certain diseases and so on. So yeah, I think funnily enough, I think a lot of entrepreneurs generally think the same about conspiracy theories, the way they view the world, whatever, which tends to be different to how maybe most people view things. And there's obviously a correlation there, and it makes a lot of sense because they view everything differently. That's why they tend to think for themselves and do their own thing. And yeah, Like everyone I look up to thinks the same about a lot of things, whereas people that I know and maybe have gone down a different path tend to think the opposite to me and these other people. And probably like a lot of people, I feel like everyone that's come from like the UK to Bali probably thinks similarly about the world.
Yeah.
That's why that's why they refuse to be in some office 9 to 5 in Stoke or whatever it is. Again, not that there's anything wrong with that, but people tend to think a certain way, don't they?
You know, it's funny. Like I did a year of work before going to uni. So I worked like in corporate sales jobs, recruitment in London, that kind of stuff, right? I was like, okay, this is 100% not the life I want to live. Went to uni, started businesses, etc., right? To not do the 9 to 5. Went full circle, ran the business for 7 years, scaled it to like really good amount, lived the lifestyle of my dreams, come to Bali, living the quote unquote nomadic life. And what I do now is work in my office from Monday to Friday. And then I have weekends and go travel and do crazy shit. Like that is literally what I've gone the whole circle and come back to do something.
I've experienced that. That's the irony. You end up wanting to have an element of routine. I guess you just do it in a nicer place.
Well, it's choice as well, right? Like I could choose not to work today.
Yeah,
but I want to work today.
Nice part.
Yeah, I do actually wake up excited to like do stuff. Like I actually look forward to, not all the time, but like a lot of the time, if I had the choice of doing this or partying, I would actually rather do that most of the time.
Yeah, same.
I think that to me is like the barometer for like happiness. I think if you're just doing shit you want to do, or at least like, you know, gives you some kind of actual fulfillment, which isn't like this jumpy up and down thing I've found a lot of the time. Like those big moments, you know, like for me, it'd be like signing a big client. For you, it'd be like, I don't know, hitting like a revenue mark or a new channel, and it's like a win. Like I feel like those moments are actually, they're not really like the best bit, to be honest. They're kind of like little milestones along the way.
Yeah, I
Fun,
agree.
is it? All those things we like look up to and like chase.
Yeah, I found that most things in life are never quite as good or bad as they seem, which maybe like really sullen. Is that the right word? But like, yeah, like genuinely things are not as dramatic as they seem, which I often don't like, which is why I like to make things really romantic and shit, because I'm kind of chasing that all or nothingness when actually the answer is probably somewhere in between. Do you know what I mean? Like you have this vision of like a certain trip being magical or whatever, but then it fucking rains half of it, and that's just life. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Not in like a miserable way, but also the flip side of that is things that you think are terrible and like, oh, this is going to fucking ruin my life, whatever. Usually it passes and it's fine.
Yeah. I think what I've noticed is as I've released the need or expectation for things to happen, my life's just been better in all parameters in terms of like results, business, dating. Like doesn't mean like not caring, it just means going towards it, but like actually being detached from it.
Yeah,
that was a big one because I used to be super attached. Like I need to hit this goal. Like this has to happen. I need to do this.
Yeah, I read some book by Anthony DeMello. It's like some fucking philosophy book called The Way to Love or some bullshit. I was reading loads of Stoicism recently, and then I read that, and it was all about like attachments basically being the single cause of unhappiness in the world. And I was like, wow, there's like some very strong quotes in it. I can't remember now.
Did it talk about like attachment styles? So you've got like in a relationship, you've got like
it was kind of like about relationships, but also just like goals and shit. And I've definitely found myself maybe attaching myself to an outcome a lot, or like what I think is going to happen with a certain person or a certain place. Basically, just expectation about anything usually just equals can equal disappointment. Well, which I don't know. It's like, but then is it a good thing to not be attached to anything? I don't know. Maybe.
I think this. I've like really gone down this path, right? Yeah. So I don't think I have the answer, but I think I've had some good, like, I've lived long enough having like no attachment or goal where I've just been like fucking a leaf in the wind. And it was good in the sense that I could learn to not need business and that kind of stuff, but terrible for like just moving forward in life, being a man, growing, etc. And I've also lived a very like 3D, just focusing on the physical, just moving forward 1% every day, which got me forward, but I also didn't necessarily feel the best. And so what I found is like having that structure is a really good thing, particularly as a man. But then also basically like the one thing I get, you know how people will reflect things to you, and like a lot of people will say like something about you, like what's something people say about you like a lot when they like meet you or speak to you online? There must be things.
Well, one thing I've noticed girls say to me, it's really weird, is that I seem bored. And it's happened like 3 times in the past 3 months.
Yeah.
Where one was like on a date I never saw again. One was like someone else, whatever. And I found that quite surprising because I always feel like I'm fucking loud and shit. But maybe I just wasn't interested and my head was elsewhere.
Yeah. So do you think? I think there's 2 reasons why. One could be because you are actually attached from a situation where you're just like cool either way, or it could be maybe you're not there, like presently.
Oh
it
yeah,
could be
that's
somewhere
very
else.
true.
Depends, right? What do you think?
Yeah, I used to be like this with my ex-girlfriend. She'd always say I wasn't fucking there, so I was thinking about some shit. I'm not very present at all ever. Like even now, I'm probably thinking about where I'm going next, which is something else I need to work on.
Yeah.
I'm always thinking about the future or the past, probably mainly the future.
Yeah.
But then like the future isn't a thing. Do you know what I mean? It's like just now.
And then how much do you feel like anxiety a lot?
I wouldn't say I do genuinely. I've had bouts of it.
Yeah.
I feel like the sun and ice baths usually fixes that.
Yeah.
Like I went to hospital like a month ago, so I thought I was having a fucking heart attack, and they were like, "No, your heart's fine. You're just like just anxious." And I was like, "Oh shit, maybe," because I just haven't felt like that in years.
Yeah.
It was like a week of like feeling like my heart rate was just fucked, but it's largely just in my head, or at least it wasn't anything to worry about. But then when you realise there's nothing to worry about, it usually goes. I was getting like mad health anxiety because like one thing, I felt ill for a while, then I was like, "Fuck, my heart's all weird," but it's probably just in my head.
Yeah.
Well, it definitely was.
So much of it is just down to belief, but anxiety is just focusing on the future. That's why.
Yeah, exactly. And depression's the past, or what they're saying it.
Yeah.
It's very true.
Where are you going next?
What, today?
Yeah.
Probably to the fucking gym. Can't go a day without that.
You go every day?
Yeah, pretty much. Like very rarely would I take more than one day off.
What have you found is like the best training style for you after doing like?
Well, I lost like 2 stone last year and got in like the best shape of my life. And I'd probably say like, especially given I was running a lot, I reckon I had a better physique than most like fitness coaches and shit. Especially in summer last year, I was like, absolutely shredded. And it was like completely natural or whatever. People accused me of like taking testosterone and shit. I was like, nah. I was just doing a lot of calisthenics. Like I stopped doing like weights and started doing more functional shit. So like pull-ups, press-ups, squats, all that shit. And then a fuckload of running. Combination of like slow stuff and like sprints and so on. And I never thought of myself as a runner, funnily enough, even though I spent years being a rower. And I guess there's probably cardio elements that transfer over. But yeah, now I've just found myself like way quicker than I ever thought I was. And I did that mad marathon. And yeah, that's like, tends to be a combination for me. I don't like, it's mad that I did like 3 years of like no cardio pretty much. I just like was going to the gym and lifting weights, but it was so aimless. So I like now having a target of like a marathon or whatever. Cause I also told myself I'd never do another marathon after the first one. 2 weeks later, I was like, fuck, I want to do another one. It's like that David Goggins.
That's the tattoo thing as well, mate, when you get one.
Yeah, I was like, I want to go one more now.
Yeah.
Then you realise like, because like doing that, I did like the sub-3 marathon. I did like 7 minutes clear, like 2:52:59. So I put on Twitter I was going to give £1,000 to charity for every minute I went over. Because sub-3 marathon is like the pinnacle. People say it's like elite if you can do that. And I'd never even run a marathon. And I'm like 88 kilo. So I'm not a runner's build. I know people that are like 70 kilo that can't do that. And so I was like, fuck, I'm going to put this ridiculous goal out there. I did train a fuckload. I was doing like 12 hours a week of running. Like, it's a lot. But now I'm like, all right, now I've proven. It's the similar thing with like entrepreneurship. Experience breeds confidence. Now I'm like, all right, I know I'm a good runner now, factually. At least I can train to be one. So now I've got to go one more. And then you realise it's like the same thing with work. You have that little moment of, oh, I've done it. Yeah, the little dopamine hit. Everyone tells me how amazing it was. But then it's gone. And you got to do the next thing. So then you realise that the process of training for it's probably the enjoyable part. Because, you know, the race or whatever. And running is, I like running because it's away from a screen. And it's a much more, whereas like in business, there's so many external factors. Whereas running, it's just me. Granted, the weather or whatever. But I either trained or I didn't. There's no hiding away from that. Whereas, you know, building a business could take 5-10 years. Whereas running a race, it's like I'll train for 4 months and run it. I either trained enough or I didn't. And I quite like the rawness of that.
I think that's why you'd like Muay Thai, mate. Because you either got punched in the face or you didn't. It's just one versus another.
I've heard a lot about this. I must try it.
I think it's like the ultimate high.
I like runner's high as well.
Yeah. All right. Fair enough. I'll ask you a couple more and I'll let you get to. I'm actually training as well. So.
Where are you training?
Where am I training? I actually either train at Body Factory or Ball.
Oh yeah.
Ball gym. Yeah. Body Factory's like.
It feels a bit like Influencer Factory.
That's the only reason I don't train it all the time.
So busy as well. Fucking
it's busy. If I want to do,
I like the ice baths and shit though. I like.
Have you done that 2 degree one, the little one?
I did that once. That's actually too cold.
fucker.
I do 3 minutes in the normal cold one.
Yeah.
And then like 15 in the sauna. I do that twice.
Yeah.
I get pretty dizzy from that, to be fair. But it's good.
My workspace has a sauna and an ice bath, so midday I'll just bounce.
Yeah, because there's none of those in the UK. Like I have a sauna in my building to below my flat, so I just go straight down to it. But they don't have ice baths, and it's like, fuck's sake, you're missing half of it.
Yeah,
ice bath's the best part.
100%.
You actually feel the difference. Someone needs to make like a Body Factory equivalent in London. They would print cash. Because it's so niche, ice baths.
Bro, Body Factory charges, I think it's like a couple $100
it's
bucks
ridiculous.
a month. That's more than
it's like 200 quid for 2 weeks.
Yeah, that's what I paid less than that in the UK.
Yeah, way less for a central London gym.
Which is why. And it's not even that good, to be honest.
No, it's not.
It's not even that good.
So it's not that good.
Yeah, it's like
whoever owns that is printing.
Yeah, yeah. Well, they've just
like, it's like I saw you coming. I know you'll pay.
But it's like my mate met Naval in there.
You met Naval?
Met Naval. I know, like, I think he met Iman in there as well. The Nelk boys. So like,
they've been there.
Yeah, anyone who's like coming through all trains there. So it's like, if you're here for a couple of weeks, you may as well go because you're probably going to meet someone.
And there's some nice girls in that sauna.
I'll introduce you to my friend Jade, who works there. She's a personal trainer there. She's actually got a couple 100K on Insta. Actually, I'll introduce you to her. Could be a good.
Well, I could never marry an influencer girl, but I can certainly say hello to one temporarily.
You can say it. Like, you can be nice. Oh yeah, health. I think health is a thing. I think it's as you get more successful, you start to think about health because you realize you're finite. And what do you have like? I'm really big onto health, like mostly Eastern stuff. But like, what are your like? Do you think about health much? Do you do any like?
Yeah, I
mean,
I've always trained a lot. So I spent like 8 years as a rower when I was younger. Like, I went through like a semi. Like, I look back now and say I was fat, but I was never fat. I was still going to the gym and shit. But yeah, like the running's a big part for me. And I like the idea of being in like functional shape. So like I could actually, I don't know, run away from a fucking lion or some shit. Not that that's ever going to happen. But yeah, like I feel like I eat cleaner back home, to be honest, than when I'm out here. Like I try not to drink much generally. When I've been out here, it's kind of different because there's been a lot of strategic sins, shall we say, and more potential distractions. But I feel like drinking in the sun is never as bad because you recover from any hangover very quick. So yeah, I guess I like microdosing now and then back home. I take my own product every day. I take like Athletic Greens and shit. I think I like that as a brand. I haven't had that out here, but I'll be all right. Enough vitamin D from the sun. But yeah, pretty much just train like every day, eat clean, do a lot of sauna stuff. Ice baths I like doing, but I don't have them back home. That's a real faff. So maybe I'd have to move here just for that.
Right. You should come.
But I genuinely feel like fasting, running, ice bath, sun, and sauna, and no drinking.
Yeah,
is like a beautiful combination.
I think sleep.
Feel good.
I think sleep is so important as well.
It is. Yeah.
I think that's getting fucking grumpy.
People speak about that more and more now. So I'm releasing Dream Dust like next week, which is the next product.
Sleep product.
Yeah.
Oh fuck, I'll buy it.
Yeah, so it's the opposite of Rainbow Dust. That's the idea.
Can you give me an affiliate code and all?
Yeah, it's good shit. I will. First influencer, first podcast sponsor.
I'll promote it. I've actually used it. I've actually used it and had a good time with it. So
yeah, I
think that's what you want in it. People who, I like how Steven did it on
with your
CEO.
Yeah,
he's like, those legit kind of relationships. All right, have I got anything else? I feel like you haven't watched Ready Player One. I wrote that down.
Nah, I've heard of it.
You need to go and watch that. You'll love it. Oh yeah, one thing I wanted to ask you, because obviously you've become fucking mastered like growing. I don't know, I haven't talked about business very much, which is like what you're known for. Like growing, a lot of people start in e-com, mostly in dropshipping, and the vast majority of them fail, right? Or like don't scale. Like, what do you think was the main things that made you successful at it versus a lot of other people who haven't been successful?
I think in summary, it's such a broad point, but people on the internet, YouTube, Instagram, whatever, they only ever talk about marketing. And by marketing, they really mean like Facebook ads. So it's all like the community speaks about. No one talks about product ever, when it's basically, it's the only thing that matters. Because you can outmarket a shit product for about a month, but then, I've had it in the past. Products not, for example, when I launched my jewelry brand, I had to go back 3 months and restart everything because our supplier fucked us over on the quality, and I had to refund like 3,000 orders in the first month. Went back to the drawing board, made the product better, launched, and it was way better. It was successful. And even now, like I spent 5 months developing the product, and no one speaks about products. It's not glamorous. It takes sometimes a lot of money, a lot of time, a lot of skill to make a good one. Because especially dropshippers, they don't give a fuck about the product. They're just trying to basically make as much money as they can without being called a fraud. That's pretty much the model. Like, don't get chargebacks, kind of deliver on the product. But when you make your own product, it's different, of course. And I just think that's the main thing, branding and products. So like, what is the actual thing that you're selling? And I've got better at that over time. I was not that good at it to begin with, and no one is. But I think that, in a nutshell, is the only way to really scale, especially past a certain point. Because like I said, you can outmarket something shit for a while, but then the reviews are bad. People don't come back. Like, our repeat customer rate, like the past month, is like 70%. So it's mad, which is probably not good actually, because it means we're not acquiring enough new customers. But that's another issue because we had no stock and so on. But I would honestly say that, like, look at any massively successful brand, not like little drop shipping bullshit, like Athletic Greens, Gymshark, Apple, obviously. People are obsessed with the product, and ultimately, where you make money really is people coming back. Because once you've acquired a customer, if they only buy once, it's very hard to be profitable first order, unless you've got like a neon sign that's 300 quid, which that model was great for that. The problem with that was the quality was not quite good enough, the shipping time was long and the experience wasn't great. But if people come back, and that's why I'm focused on subscriptions, because you want people to ultimately get like ethically addicted to the product. It's kind of how I view it, and just really like it and want to give you money. Because think about the brands you buy from repeatedly because you fucking like the product. Like Athletic Greens, I spend 80 quid a month on some green powder because for me it works, or at least I believe it works, and it's there on time. And my LTV must be mad, and that's how you make a big business ultimately. But no one's talking about that because it's not easy and it's not glamorous. Whereas I spent £1 million on Facebook ads, gets clicks. No one wants to sit and work on a product for 5 months and go through samples, supply chain, all that. And also because most people drop shipping are just borderline frauds anyway. That's just the truth. Like no ship, all this shit. So yeah, build a good product and people will come back. And then marketing should be the easy part.
You know, my biggest fear when I was running my agency at the beginning was like, oh shit, like if this result isn't good, then the client's not going to like it, and then people are going to say bad stuff about me / the business. And that happened a couple times.
Yeah, it does happen even now for me.
I had clients who like left bad Google reviews, and that literally like shook me to my soul. Yeah. Like I was literally like a mess from a couple clients saying bad things. And then we launched our January ads, and I hadn't monitored them for like 5 days. So there was like, you know, X amount of people saw them, booked, whatever. And one comment was from this agent. We work with estate agents in the UK. He said, what references do you have like to prove this service actually works? Because we were making a bold claim. And this was days ago. And like literally my body, I went, fuck, here we go. What are we going to see? And it was literally this long of a response. I posted it on my stories of an ex-client saying how fucking great his, how great it was. Not working with us anymore. He said, here's the results I got. Here's what the experience was like. I'm still making money from it to this day from a year ago working with them. And that was the moment I realized, oh shit, because that was when I started focusing on the service, right? It's the equivalent. And I realized that is it. And that's what we're doubling down on, just making it to the point where it's like, there is no one else to compare it to because it's just different. Yeah. And I think and that's also what's exciting. That's what's giving me the passion back as well. So I think like for anyone listening, it's like, if you just focus on that, innovation. That is like.
Also, I've worked with so many agencies and freelancers, and it's shocking to me even to this day that don't realize the value in over delivering. Because I'll come back. I've worked with there's a video editor I worked with like 2 weeks ago, and I'm currently in like a dispute between us because I think he delivered absolute shit to the point where I can't use it, and I'm like, I'm not paying you. I've already paid him 50% up front, which to me feels like a scam. And he's saying, oh, I need to be whatever. And I'm just thinking, if he just over delivered, I'd have worked with him for the next 3 years. Does he not see that? It's wild. And I just don't get it. So anyone listening that runs an agency, just be fucking good at your job. It's the only way to win. People just look past that. They want short-term profit, new client, or be drop shippers, new customer, instead of people coming back. So I mean, the brand's not perfect now. We get bad Trustpilot reviews, whatever, but like it's way better than shit I've done in the past. I'm so much more aware of it, and it's a constant feedback loop. I think as well, like, it's never going to be perfect, but just listen to customers or clients, whatever it is. And that's the most useful feedback. Like people said that they thought it was too sweet, so we changed one of the sweeteners. Now it's different. That took 6 months to do because the fucking supply chain is long. But it's never going to be perfect, but just try and make it as good as it can be and make it better progressively. Yeah. And it's just wild to me that people don't think being good at their job is relevant anymore. But that's the culture we live in.
It's this entitlement, right? Because they come in through a course or watching someone on YouTube. It's like, this is how you make the money. So it's like, well, these are the things I need to do to get the money. That's the
cheap on the actual job.
Well, the intention is just to make money, right? It's not actually to like do something good or do something innovative.
And you make more money long term anyway by being better.
the problem used to be when people would start a business, it's like, okay, well, I have this idea, I'm going to build this app. That used to be the problem. And it was like, no, just focus on, now it's switched to just focus on like someone's problem and solve that. But the problem is it's gone now too far to that direction where it's like, okay, we're focusing on who's got the problem, but the solving, the actual solving bit isn't there. So what I get tons of guys, like starter out guys, as I'm sure you do, if you reach out and they're like, what should I do trying to get my first client? Probably what should I do trying to launch my first store, whatever. And I'm like, literally just message people off, like who you actually like, offer to work for them for free. Be honest about where you are. Say, look, I'm not an expert, but I'll just do this for free if you like working with me. Yeah. Maybe we'll sort something out. No,
guy that does all my customer service now was a podcast viewer, and he worked for free for a month because he wanted to work with me, and now he's full time, and he's really fucking good because he just impressed me so much. Yeah. People aren't willing to do that. They think that everyone started with loads of money and shit.
Literally,
I didn't get paid for like 3 years from e-commerce because it wasn't very good. Then you get better. So people just got to go through it.
Yeah, we'll have to put this bit at the start of the pod because I feel like that's like the most valuable fucking bit people probably listen to.
Yeah.
That's what it is though, right? It's just doing the things that most people aren't willing to do. That's what makes you successful. Just look at what everyone else is doing. Just do the opposite thing of that. It will probably lead you to a good path.
Yeah.
Because there's a reason why. Anyway, one more question and we'll wrap up. Right, we're going to fast forward all the way to the end of your life. It's your last day on planet Earth. You've achieved all the things you've wanted. Space goods to the moon, probably X number of other companies, got a beautiful family, people care about you, friends, you've gone to space, whatever you've wanted to do. You're a billionaire.
Yeah.
Can't leave behind any of that shit though to the people you love and care about, but you can leave them with some words, some advice, some wisdom. What would you tell them?
Very dramatic, but something I put as the fucking like slogan of the brand. I think nothing exists until you create it, which I think is like so cheesy, but that's the way I viewed everything, and it made perfect sense with this. And I'm pretty good with slogans, so I like that one. So nothing exists until you create it, and it's just, I think the general vibe is literally everything ever was created by someone just like you. Everything, whether that's a relationship, a thing, a product, even a fucking building. Like even countries were effectively created by people that just went to a piece of land and made this thing. So that's probably what I'd say. And I try and remind myself of that every day, whether it's like, just create shit. That's the way I'm trying to live. So that was quite a dramatic ending, wasn't it? 'Cause it's on my fucking phone case.
It shows what you're doing is like real.
There's so many things I could say, but I think that's like a nice summary one.
Dope. YouTube, Instagram, where's the best place for people to find you?
Yeah, the Midnight Pod, probably on YouTube, and all my Twitter and Instagram we'll put in the bio and so on. But
he's linking himself in the bio. I actually did a podcast yesterday, and the guy, he was like a business guy. He literally like took the mic and was like, "Right, so it's been a great." He like signed himself off.
He's finished it for
I was
you.
like, I had to give him a round of applause. So if you want to say goodbye, that can maybe the new thing and sign us out.
Subscribe to the pod as always. Cheers for watching. That's what I say at the end of mine. And I pushed the mic away, but I can't do it here. It's been a pleasure as always.
Sweet.
Cheers.
Cheers, bro.